You got it.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for your patience. We had a lot of room difficulties and technical difficulties this evening, so thank you for waiting. This is the Monroe County Historic Preservation Board of Review. And I'm going to, let's see, I'm looking to see how many members we have. I have not, apologies. I have a few things I need to take care of administratively and sign into my laptop so I can see a few things. And then I'll call the roll.
Now our owl is up here, so.
And I just watched the meeting from the last month, so I feel like I just had this meeting.
Oh, I'm glad you watched that.
saw you all.
Yeah.
And that was excellent, Tammy. I'm glad that that is available.
Yeah.
And, you know, anybody's edification, at least for this time, I had to scroll it through a lot of lead up to get to the meeting, but it was really great.
Like just really locked out my password is good.
There are days like that where, and then you go to reset it and it says you can't use your previous password.
Yeah. Or one you've used in the last 10 years.
That's
Exactly.
what I
Yeah,
thought.
well, one I
can remember.
I thought it was today.
No, I logged in this morning. This is super frustrating.
I could get on my phone.
Yeah.
I could not get, they were telling me to set. I don't want to rush it. Yeah, who can set it? Is that it?
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call the roll. So let's see. Need a pen.
Pens now? Still?
Okay, Duncan Campbell. I think he said he was a maybe, and if he was coming, it was gonna be virtual, so I did not
I
see
don't think
him.
I saw his name on there unless he's going by a pseudonym.
So he's in there. Danielle Bishop Bell,
Here.
and you are in person. I'll be
My body.
taking notes of my
Yeah,
eyes here.
yeah.
Holly Root Sturgeon, not here yet. She said she was coming in person, but not here yet. Don Hall.
Here.
You're in person. Debbie Reed,
Here.
in person. Doug Wilson was not going to be here this evening. Devin Blankenship,
Here.
in person. Don Maxwell.
Here, virtually.
Camera on,
Yes.
give you a beep. And Susan Snyder Salmon. Also. So we have 5 people in person. That does make a hybrid quorum and 1 person virtual thus far. Great.
And then may I ask a potentially repetitive question? Do we have the Indiana government document saying what the standard is, just so we know if we hit that, you know, as far as people being remote versus in present? Is that something we've received, or is that?
I usually try to attach it
Okay.
to our
Okay.
emails that go out for this meeting.
Okay,
And I think
I'll
even
just do it.
Susan pointed out that I was only sending the signature page at one time.
okay,
So,
okay.
and including the whole
Okay,
thing.
probably.
It's like
Yeah,
4 pages.
Yeah, it should be
Okay.
the very first.
So
email
that,
she
that way we
sent.
know
It's
when we're
easy to
up
forget
against
those
it.
attachments.
Oh, yeah, exactly, yeah, okay, so,
Okay.
yeah, I'll just look where you've already sent it, thank you.
And I can resend it with the next,
no.
it'll probably just be sent as a. for a
It's just
while.
every time I see you, that document appears.
Yeah. So Polly is
I
not
was gonna say, we
here.
don't have a chair or co-chair.
So Don, will you be leading from the virtual world?
Well,
Or,
Doug is the. is-
oh, Doug, you're right, Doug is.
Doug is co-chair or vice chair now.
Then what?
Then it's just up
I
to
need
any
a
of us.
volunteer.
I'll volunteer to do it.
I was just gonna say.
I'll get back in
one-
my
One of the 2 of us.
my saddle.
Okay,
Thank you. Devin just wants.
Great.
power.
Yeah, I'm just hungry for power. I'm proctoring the SATs tomorrow and I'm just.
so this evening,
people's fates are in my
We
hands.
have minutes, a staff announcement, and then there are 2 new large items that are kind of possibly working their way through the plan commission
Okay,
side of things. And then we also have the CLG annual report, which is supposed to be due at the end of the month.
okay,
Really like to spend some time on that.
okay.
I do have old business also that I can interject in that.
Okay.
I should have said something over the weekend.
And then we have a guest here tonight.
Yeah, are you with, let's see, are you with Kings Road?
yeah.
Great, okay.
So yes, so I suppose what we'll do, it looks like,
Oh, let me make this bigger.
you know, I am older than our last meeting, so.
Maybe I can't make it big. Look, I have
No,
it
this
at
is fine.
200.
Okay, so we just need approval of the meeting minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to look those over and if anybody sees any changes that need to be made to last month's meeting minutes?
I saw something that I think needs some clarification.
Okay,
Sorry, I'm dealing with multiple screens here myself, trying to get back to the minutes. This was a comment, I think, on the second page of the minutes. And it was the second comment by Duncan Campbell.
And I'm still pulling up the minutes here from March. I have all this set up already.
Okay, so I think Duncan was referring to Don Hall in that comment, in which case we need another N in Don's name. I don't think that,
Oh,
I don't think
Okay.
that was a reference to me.
okay. It's the old pass the buck to the person with the same name.
Do you
trick.
know, so how far down is that on the page?
it's right here,
Third
third draft.
Paragraph.
Okay.
So Don, Danielle and I, that one.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's probably that.
Okay. Double in for you. Okay, any other changes that people see?
Oh, there's my plus sign.
Oh, here's the thing, the county one.
It just won't even, it won't even.
Being spiteful.
Yeah, I mean, it should be automatic, it just won't even.
Yeah, we'll wait now, finally.
Okay, then do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, and second,
Second,
okay, and then this one you do roll on these days?
Yeah, I think we have to now.
okay.
So Susan made the first motion and
Debbie
Debbie
second.
was second. Alright, and I'll go ahead and start with Danielle Bashant Bell,
Yes.
Holly Root Sturgeon, not here yet. Don Hall,
Yes.
Debbie Reed,
yes,
Doug Wilson,
Not
not
present.
here yet, or not coming at all. Devin Blankenship,
Yes,
Don Maxwell,
Yes,
and Susan Snyder Sandwich.
Yes.
Great, that motion passes for the minutes, 6-0.
okay, very good. So we have done item 2 now, so let's move on to item 3, planning staff announcement.
Right, so I wanted to announce that we have a new director of planning, that is Jackie Nestor Jelen.
Okay,
And so she was appointed by the Plan Commission Tuesday at their admin meeting, so it's been like almost 2 weeks that she was appointed on April the 5th.
okay,
So, yeah.
very good, congratulations to her.
Yeah, and so what I'm also going to announce as well with the staff change is that Jackie is saying that it is essential that we do some cross-training with staff. So she is going to be bumping up a new planner to be staffing this board, and that will be Drew Myers.
This is one we met last time.
No,
No.
I think you met Daniel Brown possibly
Okay.
last time. He's our newest new person.
Okay,
So he's still kind of learning the ropes of everything.
okay,
So we're gonna put Drew Myers on. He's been with us for 3 years and he was going to be here tonight. Except this is mom's birthday. He's in Indianapolis.
Okay.
So we'll meet him next month for sure.
and then will there be sort of a overlap transition, like 2 of you next
Yeah,
time? And then
I'll hopefully be coming at least next month or
Okay. So we need to gather any thoughts of the the embodied intellectual information that we need to help transfer from you to him.
I'm gonna be like
Yeah.
right there helping cross train him, and whenever there's a question, he'll come to me or Jackie, because
Yeah.
we've got Jackie also that is trained.
Yeah.
And has some knowledge here, so.
Yeah.
We'll kind of work together, keep things afloat.
Well, thank you for your time with us.
Yeah, thank you for everything.
And another quick announcement, I sent out the letter, the annual letter to all of the HB overlay folks. Debbie, you might have got, I don't know if you got it or not, you did get it.
I did.
I went ahead and included this little
Oh,
cute
very
card with it, 'cause we have so
She
many.
just wants gold stars.
Yeah,
I'll just do
exactly.
So
She's trying to finish strong.
That's- I got that out, I'm glad Debbie that you got your copy there, so that's even more proof that.
That's our sample that it was received by one of the owners. Okay.
Thank you again.
Is there a list of people that went out somewhere?
Yeah, I had circulated that a little bit,
Was it in last month's, was that in last month's minutes or was it just something?
I-
not in the, I didn't
emailed
wanna,
everybody because it came just to me.
I BCC'd everybody. I think it came as a,
And then you made the correction. You
Yeah,
added
because
one.
there was like 3 names missing from the original list, which is.
So it's somewhere in the email.
Yeah, we have. a list.
Would I
and
have
I
it?
can go ahead and resend the final
I'm just
list
curious.
that we have that was fully
Yeah.
corrected and had the 2 changes from Danielle. I'll try and
Yeah,
remember.
so essentially we have our list with things like the interim report of all the properties, you know, that have been surveyed, but then we get down to the smaller designated list, and that's what, how many would you say is on there, like? Fewer than 15?
Yeah.
That's a relatively small list, but yeah.
I remember we talked about it, I just didn't know there was a comprehensive list somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's, I mean, I keep track of what is in the county that is locally designated as well as what is on the national register within the county outside of Bloomington. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We're at 15 now, local designations. But that includes a couple of bridges owned by the county essentially, so. 2, 1 bridge, Friendship Bridge. No, there's 2, Seacrest Ferry Bridge and Friendship Bridge.
very good.
Um,
Okay. Anything else with that?
No, that's all administrative business I can think of.
Okay. And then let's move into old business. Danielle says she had some old business
I
to share.
have old business is that the Mid-States Corridor, if you all remember, some discussion about that. We had a bit of a subcommittee to look into that. That is the route that's been proposed, some kind of route connecting from roughly Jasper north to I-69. That they have determined a preferred route, and it will be Route P. And I'm not at all surprised by this. The route is due north along the Highway 231 corridor, essentially from Huntingburg north, and then they will be bypassing to the east of towns and cities that 231 currently goes through, like Lagodi. That is the route that they will be.
So they will not be coming directly into Monroe County at all,
It
which
will
some
not
of
be,
the routes were.
right, there's no connection into Monroe County, so it's going up Crane right to I-69.
I think I heard that on WFIU this week, some sort of an update.
The environmental, the statement is out. I mean, if anybody wants to look at all of the environmental impact statement, any of that, the draft that's out on the website. So, and I mean, I'm happy to give links to that because I have to review some of that myself.
And I believe this is something like, you know, removal of like 150 structures, or there was some number like that.
Possibly, I mean,
Yeah.
that particular route
All kind of
had
preliminary.
more historic structures impacted than maybe 1 or 2 of the other routes, but not as many as some of the routes.
Yeah,
And the impact is, when I was looking at the maps the other day, there's a lot of potential for not directly impacting them, that they can,
Yeah.
there's a lot of wiggle room for, the roadway. It wouldn't be as close as like with your mom's house, so hopefully that will be the case, but obviously Indiana Landmarks will be very involved still.
Good.
and that is one of those things for those of you who just missed out on all the I-69 years and just have a longing for reading reports. You can probably get everything you ever wanted to read from the Mid-States Corridor reports, and relive all the special documents, so.
And they will still be having meetings. I mean,
Yeah.
there will be, additional meetings now that they've
Yeah.
determined the route. It's not done,
Yeah.
by any means.
Yeah, and there's lots of adjusting of the center lines and things like that. In fact, before we officially started, we were talking about things like Brown School and stuff like that, where they can narrow the road bed or they can adjust the center line or things like that to work around cemeteries like Huff Cemetery, by Worms Way and stuff, impacted the center line of I-69. So, okay, thank you very much for that update. And then, any other old business? Okay, I would propose as we get into new business that we prioritize. You said the Kings Road Farm rezone?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, are you,
old
I do
business?
actually have an old.
We are-
additional old
I thought-
business,
I thought I made a note of it. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Can I check? Because I think that the person.
Oh, the other person's there too, okay.
David Ray is also, and
Is he, which one is he?
I mean, he's inquiring about, so he sent an email in, and let's go ahead and see if we can't include David Ray as a panelist. Maybe you might have to
Okay.
raise your hand, David, to see if tech services will permit.
Okay.
Yep, there you go.
Meanwhile, we'll have Danielle do her other old
The old
business
business
as
is
we adjust
really,
for
really
that. yeah.
quickly, it's, I thought about, bringing this up with, the work plan, but, I think it's more old business. I just wanted to update, everyone on the Alexander Memorial. If you haven't seen, is is happening. The masons have been on site, obviously, they have cleaned, the stonework that will remain, they have removed the old panels. Fabricators are finishing up the last of the panels. The new panels will be installed and the entire monument repointed. I would say probably by the end of the month, if the masons have their way with the weather and all. It won't be, right, so it won't be long now. And we have a, you don't know this, we have Woolery Mill. Randy Cassidy has said, by all means, bring him to the mill. So we've struggled with a location. I've not actually been able to talk to John totally about this yet, but we have a location for the original panels. At least temporarily until the limestone park created.
That was our suggestion. the
Yeah,
whole-
and Randy,
Danielle and I.
Randy is our go-to guy in this
Right.
community,
Right.
so he's like, sure, let's, if we can, we'll make an exhibit out of it,
It'd be a
we've got
wonderful
space.
spot.
Yeah, so.
Wonderful.
So,
That's
yeah,
great
we're moving
news.
along
Great.
with that, and we hope to have a rededication during the July 4th celebrations that has to be worked out with the city, so that's the old business.
And then I would suggest if there's any way for us to get that, I don't know if that would need to be on like a work plan note or something. So it shows up again as, as we get closer to discussions on something like a limestone park, because I know sometimes who has what and why it's there can get lost in the shuffle, so.
The limestone park probably should become
a
part of
normal
our,
Topic
like,
conversation.
yeah,
Okay,
whether it be a work plan or like a committee or
Yeah.
trying to get it in with the county
yeah,
council people and everything for planning. So, yeah.
yeah. Oh, I have my own county council person to bug. Okay, so why don't we go ahead, so our Maple Grove Road, Ben Owens Farmstead, we have David Ray here online, correct?
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay, so I will let you take the floor and we will have Tammy intervene as needed if there's any additional information. But yes, feel free to go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so my wife Mary is here as well. And just a little bit about the property. I mean, it was the Ben Owens farmstead built in 1864, right behind the house, about 10 yards from the back door is the 1819 log cabin, which we've restored. We actually have another project going on this spring to add some additional repairs to it. But my wife's family moved out here in 1984 and started like the first bed and breakfast in Monroe County and ran that until her mother's passing. And then we moved out in 2001 and raised our 3 kids here. During the time, we've done numerous upgrades to the historic nature of the property and keeping things going. We're in our 50s and kind of slowing down, and our daughter has a couple kids and they're outgrowing their house here in Bloomington, and we would like to transition the house over to them to keep it in the family. But the best option for both us and them would be for us actually moving into the historic barn. That's one of the options that we're thinking about. There's an 1860s like beam with like the pegs in it and everything that we've done several. We did a big repair project about 5 years, replacing some of the beams. But it has a slate roof that's in vast need of repair. It's got water damage coming in. We've got some siding damage that's allowing some more water damage. So it really needs a lot of repairs, but it's hard to justify that kind of expense just for the barn. But we thought if we did this whole project where we did the re-roofing and re-siding, and then we made like a living space within it, we could live here on the property and just because we love the neighbors, we love the property out here on Maple Grove. But it would allow our daughter to take over the historic house with her family, her husband and kids, and then we could stay out in the barn and be close. But it's zoned R1, so it would be her. I mean, we're related, but technically it's 2 different families. It's our daughter's family and then my wife and I. So I guess the best option would be like a historic overlay. So we could do it. We have Lauren Wood that has been out looking at the barn. They're going to come out again, but we don't want to do anything like as far as progressing with the project unless it's, zoned in the right way where we can all live here together. And that way we'd have a place to stay, and that would allow us to put in, $200,000 or $300,000 into the barn to get it completely restored and good for the long haul. So I don't know if that makes sense or if you have any questions, but that's kind of what we're thinking. So.
Fact that, if anybody remembers, this is where we had the Drystone Conservancy do the last workshop that we've tried to repeat, hopefully can, but when we had them come do the Drystone Wall workshop, it was at their farm, because they also have walls, a lot.
We are both enrolled for the June Lexington Stonewall Conservancy class, like the one they did here, but they have one in Lexington, Kentucky. We've had 2 sections come down, so my wife and I are taking the class so we can rebuild some of those, because the last section we did was like $15,000 a couple of years ago, and we've had some more sections fall down since then. So we thought we would just take the class and learn how to do it ourselves, and so we've got some sections we want to improve. So.
Are we okay?
That's just
Let's see. Zoom fit unexpectedly. You can either send a report or don't send. Let's see. David, are you able to hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I'm just looking at the county GIS. Is the cabin you talked about, is it the white clapboard building?
No, it's in the back, right behind the house. You'll see
Okay.
it right behind, like you're looking at the front door. If you go to the back, you'll see a giant pecan tree, and right to the south of that giant tree is a little cabin. And that's,
I'm trying to identify, because there's, what I'm seeing on the county GIS is I'm seeing the white structure. What's the white structure?
it was an old book bindery that we fixed up just in case like families in town and they want to stay. It's got a little kit, like a small kitchen and a bed in it. So just, there's extra like visitor space.
And then,
And
Tammy,
there's a shed right in front of that. That is just a outbuilding storage shed. And then there's the barn. Then you see the house, and then you'll see the little log cabin.
okay. And then Tammy, like on the parcel information, it says 2-family dwelling.
Well, her dad lived in that little white house before his passing. So I don't know if that's what it says. Yeah.
2-family dwelling.
Are we okay then if it says 2-family dwelling, or do we have to get it rezoned under historic overlay then?
Yeah, the way that we would view the 2-family dwelling would be pre-existing non-conforming. And they're being taxed right now as a 2-family dwelling, I'm assuming. And that really isn't necessarily a planning designation. I mean,
Okay.
sometimes use that as a clue as for what's going on there. If you're saying that it was the little white,
The white one in front.
what it
Yeah. By the road.
there, like, we wouldn't be able to transfer that to the barn. I mean, you'll be needing to pull permits to
Right.
upgrade the barn, thinking, and so we would not be able to like transfer that to the structure, I don't think. And plus, if it's not been, if not 2 families have been living on a property for more than 6 months, like that kind of actually fades out and it is not relevant. I think it's just mostly a taxing, the way they've been taxing.
And then I'm asking Tammy this question. So when we do adaptive reuse, does the adaptive reuse override the accessory structure parameters?
So I was not the person that, we had another planner that talked with, Mr. Ray first. And then I got to thinking about it, and there's really like 2 pathways, I think, forward. One of those is that, David, maybe listen to this one pretty carefully. So one process that I think our planner had expressed with you was to rezone to ag rural reserve zoning.
Mhm.
And if you rezone to that zone, it would outright then allow you to do an accessory dwelling unit, which has a lot of conditions associated with it. And you would be limited to 1,000 square feet of living space. And I think during that rezone process that you would probably get picked up and requested to add on to the HP overlay as well, because the commissioners would probably want to see that property brought into the county kind of oversight with the HP board. So that's one way to do it. You would be paying for a full rezone. It's $500 plus 25 an acre. Plus we would include the HP overlay portion of that. There's no fee associated with tacking that on. And that would just need plan commission recommendation and then a county commissioner approval to make that happen. The other avenue that I see is that you could just ask for an HP overlay rezone designation with this board. And then that would then go to the commissioners for that, approval. Then once you have that HP overlay, you unlock this planning tool called historic adaptive reuse. That then unfortunately would tack on another 30 days, but would allow you some flexibility, I think, to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and say, I just want to have 2 residences here, and not even say one's an accessory dwelling unit. And you wouldn't necessarily be beholden to keeping just that, following that
Parameters,
strict
yeah.
guideline of, a tourist home, not tourist home, the accessory dwelling unit. So I think there's two ways that you could go with this, and I'm happy to answer more questions regarding either process.
I think the second is better, the historic adaptive reuse sounds better.
And the Staffords, David and Mary, we have a former board member, Phil Stafford, and his wife that have the Ward House, another 1830s, historic property, but east of town. They just did this with their barn as well, so they would be somebody you might want to chat with.
That'd be
Phil is
awesome.
He's chair of the board of the Monroe County History Center too, so very accessible, but they did the HP overlay. I think with the idea that they're running out their barn as a
Tourist home.
tourist home, as we call it.
So that's a
here, but-
reuse for that.
But I think they had in mind that at some point they may move into that barn,
Mhm.
potentially, so it's very nice, but.
Yeah.
But it sounds, it's kind of the same idea.
Right, so the historic adaptive reuse, usually a property is allowed to have one primary use, and that's your house. And in the case of historic adaptive reuse, it allows for a property to have like more malleability. So with the Stafford house that Danielle brought up as an example, they get two uses. They get the tourist home and their primary residence. Should the Board of Zoning Appeals, because that's who would decide the use for you ultimately, but should they decide that residence plus another residence makes sense for the amount of acreage that you have, for the scenario that you have and what you're presenting, that is a possibility. Is it a 100% guarantee? You never know until the hearing is entirely over, because you have neighbors. You never know if a neighbor is going to come out and have an issue, or if something pops up. But like historic adaptive reuse, I mean, going from a barn to a home is not as major of a thing as like, say, turning it into an event center, which we have had some historic adaptive reuse event centers. Those get a little more controversial, take a lot more thought. So.
And then, in their case, if they got to that stage, maybe with BZA, would it be an option still for them to subdivide if they needed to move it onto a different parcel?
I don't think so. I think, if I recall, you don't have sewer and you didn't have at least 10 acres.
Right, so we don't need to rezone it. We don't need to like separate it into parcels.
Right.
I wouldn't.
I'm running through every scenario in my brain. So then, the other thing that's important for you to know from our board's perspective is, we like when buildings are maintained. So like if you see something going wrong with your barn right now, maintenance is one of those things that even after it's under our historic preservation overlay, you don't need to come to us for maintenance requests if you're replacing like with like. But if you're like ripping off the side of the barn and replacing it with vinyl, those are the kinds of things that we care about once you're under the overlay.
Right.
Yeah, you need to like throw a tarp on the roof right now or like cover something in
No,
plastic or whatever. Then by all means, we support the protection of the building. So.
Yeah. So it's not like I mean, we had Steve's Roofing come out and do some repairs. They said that's going to hold us for a while, but to re-roof the whole thing was going to be like $60,000. And with the time we couldn't really do that. But if we do this project that we move into it, then that would be feasible. So, but yeah, it's not like we got like 8 beams replaced and the roof repaired, and fix some grading stuff. So it should be, it's good right now, but for the long term, there's pieces of slate that's falling off the roof, and when it rains, there's some spots. So it needs fixed, here in the near term.
Okay, so then with us, is your main goal just to see if we think you should move forward with the historic overlay?
Yes, we would love your blessing to move forward for this historic overlay and then to do the adaptive reuse, well, I guess with the county commissioners. But we would love your blessing to do that. And, you guys are certainly welcome to come out and check things out. I think you can see that we've tried to be the best stewards that we can. We've redone all the wood floors and done, everything accordance to, keeping it in a historical nature. And we love this area and we want to continue it. We're just kind of our creative solution to stay here long-term and fix the barn and then pass it on to the next generation. So.
And then does anyone else on the board have questions or comments that they want to throw into this discussion at this point in time?
I think if this is, if we're gonna hopefully designate anything, this is one of them.
Yeah.
Now that you all are fabulous stewards of this property and have been for a long time, so I think it's, obviously there's paperwork you have to complete and processes to go through, but we love it when somebody comes to us and says, we want to do this. So.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. I know, and they've got such a high percentage of walls on their property. It's like, well, there goes our wall survey. We can start there. Anybody
You
else
guys
have-
welcome to come out and help stack anytime you want.
Yeah. I know, if we could all just spend, instead of you having to spend the 15,000 on more wall repair, if we could all just do training, then we could
Right.
be better off.
Well, the Drystone, the discussions I've had with Jane at Drystone Conservancy is making Monroe County a regular location for their workshops. So, no.
Yeah, our next door neighbor has reached out and we've reached out both to offer our sites as the class, to have a class here again. So we've both been in contact with them. So hopefully they'll come back for another class.
And then, like I see on the packet that we have up, it says, it has your farmstead listed as outstanding. Do you know much about the family history there, or the original architect or builder? Because a lot of times, like your house very much architecturally stands on its own, but those are always some interesting facts to throw in when we're looking at designating as any family history of important people or a builder or anything like that. But like I said, architecturally, you're in good shape.
I mean, my wife's kind of talking to me here on the side. I know it's Greek Revival and the Owens built the house. I know in the 30s it was empty for like a decade, and somebody came out that had a book bindery for a while and wrote books. Unfortunately, her dad, who had all the history on it, has passed, so we'll have to dig through. I think he has some stuff written down, but we'll try to get that.
The Maple Grove documentary, if
Yeah,
there's
It's well documented, the Maple Grove Road nomination,
okay.
but there might be some of that, that additional information that, would be
We have
interesting.
a,
to file.
We have a brick that when they did some duct work on, it has the guy's, he scratched in his name and the year, like Fred Aspel, 1864. And on the other side of the brick, it says George B. McClellan for president. So
Wow.
that's kind of cool. So there's some neat stuff like that, but we'll have to find out more of the history. I'm sure we can have it in some of her dad's paperwork.
don't know if the owns are related to the ones in the.
Yeah, I would say, I feel like we would encourage you to move forward with the designation and definitely pull some resources. And I don't know if Danielle would have some barn resources and grant funding and stuff that might help you out in the
I was gonna
process.
say, the best resource is not here right now at this meeting, but Duncan Campbell is the best resource that you can get when it comes to barns, so.
We've been out to his barn. It's awesome. So, yeah, we
exactly.
maybe meet
So
with
you
them.
guys
after we talk to 'em.
Or when we had the tour, so
Yeah.
Duncan and I both serve on the Indiana Barn Foundation Board, and Duncan oversees the technical advice committee that we have. You travel around the state, you know, so obviously if it's right in Monroe County, he's happy to come out and.
Yeah, I'd love to have him come out.
Uh,
And maybe
Yeah.
even meet with Lauren Wood and their design team when they're coming out to kind of come up
Yeah,
with some ideas. So
Yeah.
I'll reach out to Duncan.
Very good. Is there anything else that you would like from us tonight, other than our blessing to move forward?
No, that would be outstanding. No, I know you have other business and I don't want to slow anybody else down, but
Yeah,
thank you
no,
for
no,
allowing us.
but keep in mind, because you are in the National Register District, it is possible, and I could double check this for sure, but you probably can also tap into the historic homeowner tax credits.
Okay,
when you are
awesome.
on this. So, that might help you a little bit too on this project.
Yeah, the house is paid off, but there may be some kind of thing for the renovation that would be helpful. So,
That's the whole idea, yeah, when you're putting the money into the renovation, and then it helps you, gives you a little bit of break.
I never thought about that. Would be outstanding. All right, well, thank you so much for your time. I'll let you go on with your meeting, but
Look
Thank
forward to
you.
seeing more. Tammy, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, David, I will try to be in touch with you or have Ann reach out to you regarding how to get started with the HP overlay application.
okay,
And I'll send the link, our deadline for the application is the first Wednesday of the month. So it just depends on which one you want to shoot for to get the process started.
outstanding. Yeah, well, you should be ready by that May one.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank
You.
you.
Good evening. Bye.
Bye.
Very good. So essentially with the historic adaptive reuse, that's where we're able to give our recommendation that we think it's a good reuse. And so that's what helps it kind of be outside of the parameters of the accessory dwelling unit, right? So if it was like 4,000 square foot barn that they wanted to use as a house, we could say, yes, we think that's good use for the barn and gonna help save the barn and the
Yeah.
farmstead overall, yeah.
Yeah, you can, a representative could come to the Board of Zoning Appeals and speak on behalf. I mean, planners have to look at it from a practicality
totally.
standpoint, though, like make sure there's plenty of parking and the septic
exactly.
system is adequate,
Exactly,
things
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, you couldn't have like 87 people living on the property, just kind of,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, yeah, and we have run into that problem with Belmont House.
Yeah.
Like they just can't, I think their septic it's on the market again,
Yeah,
Is that right?
unfortunately.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it's still not functioning as an event center. They just haven't been able to pull that site plan. There's some floodplain issues as well. I think they were able to
which
get
the
those
basement
state
was
floodplain
flooded, I know,
permits, but.
when BRI bought it, the basement got filled in because it would have flood all the time. Yeah,
And they have
it's
since
flooded.
the state has done a new study out there with a higher elevation, and so I think that it's still gonna be considered in the floodplain,
Floodplain, yeah.
yeah. It's still functioning
Yeah.
as a motel, a
Yeah.
5-bedroom motel.
Yeah.
But I don't,
Just getting creative with the other parts of it.
yeah, if they wanted to propose something different, a use, of course, it would go back to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Okay.
But right
Have
now,
they
it's-
done any of the stuff that has gone through review then, as far as like all that parking, right? So they
No,
really
because
done
it got stuck in the site plan
Okay.
phase, which was
They
stuck
put
with
the
the
church
floodplain.
in, but yeah, they didn't do any of the other stuff that was, didn't they build a little church there?
Yeah, that
Forgive
was-
me, because I'm not sure what we're talking about.
Yeah, this is out on 48, almost to the county line, almost to Whitehall.
It's one of our designated properties.
Yeah, and so, yeah, and it, they did a beautiful renovation on the Beaumont house, and then, we're running it as a bed and breakfast and wanting to turn it more into an event center. And so it's kind of midway through, and they sold it, and now it's for sale again, so it's,
Yeah,
that's tough.
Are they selling these though because they couldn't get that done?
Probably, it was probably the optimism that they could, and then the fact that it came through, but. But I'm glad the house was saved, I just wish that,
I think
the
there's always
viable
been
property
flood
was
issues
over.
out there. I know there has been.
I still work on that.
I didn't want to say years
Okay.
ago because I didn't want to keep the devil's advocate.
So,
but
And then, let's see, so you're here for Kings Road.
Yeah.
So I would propose that we go ahead and do item D next.
And I've got one thing I can read from planning staff.
Okay,
So, all right, trying to get through the, okay, here to get to, so I'm just gonna read it because I know very little of this petition. Drew Myers, who was hoping to be here tonight, is not, he sent me this. So during the April 14th Plan Review Committee meeting, a discussion about the historic nature of structures on the property at 5577 East Kings Road came up. According to the Shard database, the existing farmhouse is listed as contributing. According to Jason Voorhees,
Yes.
current owner, the two existing barn structures are also historic, but are not in good shape. Currently, Mr. Voorhees has a long-term tenant in the farmhouse. He does not allow the tenant to enter into the existing barns for safety reasons. Mr. Voorhees communicated with the Plan Review Committee that his ultimate goal for the property is to fully restore the farmhouse and barn structures. You intend on leveraging revenues made from listing the farmhouse as a tourist home cabin to help pay for future restorations. Hence, the purpose of the rezone to request the AgRR zoning in the first place. So it's currently zoned, I believe, like RE1, it will say up here somewhere. And that does not permit tourist homes. So you are hoping to rezone to AgRR, which is a zone that does allow for tourist home use. And I think, you know, you're currently on that track and on that path to do that. But someone in the Plan Review Committee, I guess,
Thought that I should.
that they wanted to have it come here for discussion.
okay. So that's where we are. So essentially, so you're talking the main house.
So the main house does not need restoration.
Right.
The main house had been added, remodeled and added on. It's a beautiful 120-year-old farmhouse that has been rewired and so it's,
Yeah.
we actually lived there for 2.5 years and now we have some long-term renters. The barns on the property, I don't have a specific goal in mind of what to do with them. They do need to be, I do want to preserve them and restore them at some point.
So
We
the
need to
house
see.
is
That's the house.
here,
Yeah,
and there is someone living in the house,
yes.
and you're wanting to then add the tourist home use.
No, so the
The house, the main
that
house.
the person living in the house is only there for 3 months. So currently, we're only allowed to rent the home out for 30 days or longer.
Okay,
So the property just, we would, if we were able to get rezoned and rent it out short term to people coming down to visit their kids or go to football games or something,
mhm,
generate more revenue than we would be able to use to do other repairs on the property.
got it.
Expensive to maintain, and it's not, from a long-term stay, there's not a lot of people that can afford to cover just our expenses just on the upkeep of the house itself. But, you know, the barns are, we went in them when I lived there, but I just don't want
Yeah. You don't want
guests
the light-
going in there
liability,
until,
I danced in one of them once, for
one of those?
Blooming Foods benefit.
oh, is that
They
right?
did it like the old time country dance.
They Hoffs were there?
I don't know who was even the owner, it was so long
Yeah,
ago.
what year was it? I'll find it.
Whenever Blooming Foods did a,
Sven and Jean Elma were there. I went to school with their daughter.
So the King family, Herbert and Howard King, looks like they owned it from
They Hoffs.
1900 until 1981.
Yeah.
oh, you've got a sketch going already.
I've got some questions if I can jump in
Yeah, sure.
and
Jump
ask
in,
some
yeah.
questions. I think we've got a little bit of a map, but with the site plan drawn out, but going back to the actual photograph,
Oh, okay.
because to me that's more telling. I think there's a close-up photograph. or whatever.
I'm gonna make
Yeah.
it smaller for a second.
34.
Oh, there is, yeah.
I'm just curious if you have knowledge, because some of these things get labeled shed and they had other uses historically, but this is for you, property owner, if you have knowledge of what the other buildings, what their use was historically, like there's the one that's next to the barn,
So
a
the-
little bit larger one.
There's the larger barn and I've just called it the smaller barn next to it. That's connected. There's a concrete slab between them, little basketball court there, but both of them. The larger barn has a couple of horse stalls and a hay loft and then some storage areas. And again, I'm not a farmer. And so I
Okay.
have never, this is the first farm that I've
Well, that's
purchased,
what, so
and-
that's why I was wondering if you had any knowledge of it.
The day house, when they were there, they had some donkeys that they used the smaller barn to, the donkeys would could had access to that smaller barn. They would come out in the field next to that smaller barn, it's fenced in, to graze out there. And there's in order for me to feel comfortable with people going in there and enjoying the barn, I need to get the flooring and the hayloft restored. I'd like to get maybe a better staircase up to the hayloft. But I thought that are eventually, I could either, if I was able to get it into repair, or could be used for animals, I could see if there were neighbors who wanted to rent out the stalls to keep their horses. I just have a few ideas. Like, they asked me at the planning commission if I was gonna make it into an event center. And it crossed my mind, but also this looks like a huge, it's on 20 acres and there's like 40 acres other, like, connected to it, but also just across the road, 200 feet from either side, there are people that have homes on like 5 to 10 acre lots, and I don't want to like make an event center and disrupt the neighborhood, because it's a very peaceful neighborhood. And so most likely I would either restore the barns so they could be used for animals to graze them in the fields, and then restore the fences and so it could be used for donkeys or horses.
I have a real quick question.
Sure.
The large barn, the condition of the roof.
Haven't seen any problems. Looks like an aluminum.
You had mentioned at some point that you didn't want people to go in. And actually, with this question, I'm not thinking about liability. I'm not thinking about, people visiting or getting hurt, even though I should, and I understand all that. I'm just asking about the longevity of the barn,
Sure.
because if you don't have a roof, you're gonna lose the barn really
I haven't
fast.
noticed, when I've gone, I haven't noticed any water dripping into the barn
So you-
through the roof when I've been up there. Like I had some workout equipment up there.
Mhm.
But there are some rotting boards that I knew where they were and wouldn't step on. I even let my kids go up there if I was directly supervising them.
But those are in the loft, not the,
They're in the hayloft.
okay,
Yes.
the actual floor, the
Yeah.
hayloft, not the,
The actual floor of the barn is dirt.
no, I mean, in the hayloft,
Yeah.
the hayloft floor.
Mhm.
Is that where you're having trouble with a few of the beams
There are
or
some-
flooring, or is it the structure of the roof?
It's the floor.
Okay, good.
in the hayloft.
And then my next question on a smaller shed barn, what's the roof like on that one?
I think both of the roofs are structurally intact.
Good, okay.
They,
Okay.
and I don't like aesthetically how they look, because the paint is kind of worn off on them, but I'd like to restore them. Look nicer.
On the Google satellite images, they look in fairly decent shape.
Good, good.
I don't see any gaping holes or anything.
There's some window, like the old barn windows that I think would need to be repaired
Yeah.
and replaced.
The other, this is not a comment for you. This is a comment basically for everybody here, but also for Tammy, and Drew, obviously, page 31 is specifically where I'm referring to. I would like for planning staff to become educated, to pick up one of those copies of the Indiana Bar Foundation's new booklet that is in the planning office.
Actually, it's.
Well, then I'll bring you some more.
Please do. Please.
Because I'd like for everybody in planning staff to become educated about these historic barns and to then use the proper terminology when they are creating these reports for zoning and planning boards, because this is not a pole barn. And the terminology greatly matters when we are referring to these historic structures, because pole barns are not historic structures at this point. And this is, so that's just a really tweaky thing for me. I'm sure it would be for Duncan, because he gives a talk on this sort of thing. But in any case, that's just something I noticed that, some of the other outbuildings, I understand one may not be totally educated on what those are. However, I know with a site visit, with Duncan or some of the others who do know that education could be provided, but, that was just something I noticed. So,
Most of my education is walking the property with Doug Dayhoff. Bought it.
well, and that's what I said, it was not a comment to you, this was the planning staff report basically is, but that's something that is available if you wanted to have, visit to the property and get some insight as to what these buildings were, what they were used for, originally, any of that sort of thing.
I'd love to learn more about the history and things that we used for. I know that the barn, the larger barn there's a gentleman who lives on King Road, that I've been told helped build that barn when he was a teenager. He's in his 80s now. The smaller barn, I actually don't know how old that barn is. And then there's a structure next to the house that Doug called they've called it the cider house. The property was used as a orchard. I'm not sure what wiped out the orchard. There's no, all the hay fields now used to be apparently apple orchards, and the trees were, I guess there's a disease that there are still 6 apple trees on the property, but not out in where the orchard was. And so there's a property that I thought looked like a chicken coop, but apparently it's not a chicken coop because it has a concrete floor and then the same wood structure. It looks like that were used to build the barns. So Doug told me, I don't know how he got this information, but they thought that maybe they had made cider in that structure.
It would be wonderful, the man that you're talking about, 80 years old or such, that either helped build it or knew it, if someone could get a recording, sit down with him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that would be priceless
I-
before something might happen
Sure.
to him. The history before that's gone, oh, that would be wonderful. Maybe somebody could do
I'll work
that.
with somebody in the neighborhood to see if I can, I've never actually met, it's just been like word of mouth, like.
Oh, but that'd be wonderful if you
So-and-so
could do
lived
that.
down the road. Yeah.
I think there's a team at the History Museum that will set those things up.
Oh, is that-
You might just check with them.
The oral history,
Which history museum?
All right, the Mineral County.
Monroe County History.
Yeah.
so on
That'd
Sixth
be
Street,
great.
202 East Sixth Street.
The old Carnegie Library. And they do oral histories and then they transcribe, get a transcript from the whole thing and have keep both the oral and digital copies.
And then, is part of this discussion doing a historic overlay, or is that not part of the discussion?
The,
I don't know what that means, so
Yeah.
like,
Right, I mean, I'll say from recent experience, when you guys added the historic overlay to the barn, it kind of reset that whole, process over for that property. They are now having to like kind of stair step their way through those hearings for that purpose.
Okay.
Of protection,
Yeah.
which is fine.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes when we do historic preservation overlay as a whole, there's more of an application where you do have to submit the site plan and all the things that are on the site and history
Well,
of the
yeah,
site.
because we have to document all
Yeah.
of the resources that are there.
Right.
What is contributing.
And I
what's
feel
not
like that got
contributing.
slightly bypassed by just tacking it onto that last petition.
Because that was just solely the barn.
It was
That was
just
it,
solely the barn, and then we were getting live testimony, like from a direct source. So I feel like,
Was that not made though as a recommendation though? I mean, if we made a recommendation that this board recommended that this happen, I mean, then there wasn't any like, you know,
you're saying for the old, for the,
for that previous single barn.
Yeah,
But
we-
then, I mean, you know, if I make that recommendation, then I don't expect that the process then doesn't happen as it should otherwise. So I mean, that's I guess what's wrong.
That's like the risk we're taking by recommending something
Well, I
that's
mean,
inevitable.
I'm gonna recommend something and then I expect that from there, then whatever the process is happens. So if it needs an application, then it gets an application and it goes through this process and that's just part of it. So you're saying
for
that
this
that
one, it
just
was like,
got tacked
the
on
barn.
and-
Yeah,
was
which is
just
a
the
rarity that we
barn.
don't normally do. Yeah, that was what
right,
we were
and we
looking
took live testimony then and there on the spot. There was two people went out and did kind of the spot inspection. There were corrections made by the landowner. So, and I think that's good. It does tack on that extra like time to a petition. And rezones usually take already 3.5, 4.5 months to get through the process. You were just now learning tonight about what the historic adaptive reuse process is.
Yeah, the
which
first,
is-
I heard that term is when, or in the first.
Right, and that is at the discretion of the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is a whole separate process, a separate ask. I mean, and you just were straight just wanting to do the tourist home, so that, or rezone to the IRR to allow for the house to be rented out as a tourist home. Right now. Yeah. I
And
mean,
is it automatic when he goes to the AgRR that it is then allowed to be rented out as a tourist home?
there's another application. I mean, you would have to do a site, kind of a site plan and just prove that you have enough parking spaces. And there's, it's another process just to get that tourist home permit. Which I'm sure Drew was talking to you
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
This is the first, you told me that what I had to do first was to go through and get it rezoned as AgRR.
Mhm.
Then once it's rezoned as AgRR, then I can apply for the permit to have it used as a tourist cabin.
Mhm. Right.
And then from there, that was our first goal, and the property is beautiful. I just wanted to be able to have it help me generate revenue so I can pay to keep preserve and keep the property the way it is.
So,
Improve and
Yeah.
improve, I mean,
Yeah.
restore.
Right,
To maintain these
right,
pieces of property and buildings, it's expensive.
yeah.
And we applaud you, thank you.
Yeah.
We're very aware of all the costs involved, thank you.
do you remember who it was that, from the plan review committee that was interested in having the board here? Was it Julie Thomas?
I think it may have been Julie.
I'm sure it was,
So-
because she has her back. She
I,
always has. her
so
back.
I'm just throwing this out there, that's, I know there's different sequences and like we experienced with the last one. That there's a few different pathways to get to the same point. So one of the things, when we're looking at a complete farmstead in Monroe County, I know, at least in this space right here, that it's like, well, what can we do to preserve the farmstead as a whole, while the buildings are still intact? And so that's where it gets into the historic designation part. I know that can be part of the tourist cabin option. but he also has this other pathway to get to the tourist cabin option. As far as the house goes, the house is a ultra modified again, and modified some more, gabled L. That right now looks like whatever its most recent updates are, which is, that's not a slight of any kind, but it looks like whatever the last updates were. That if, you know, if in the future, let's say you redid all the barns and got them into their former glory, and then wanted to start looking at the house, then there would also be able to be protections on the house that would get it looking like the whatever 1890s to 1910s, whatever structure that it originally would have been. I know before I feel like this was like with the Steinsville situation with the bridge. We've done things where we've said like, oh, we think it's a good idea to do this next step if also, in addition to that step, you start the process of historic designation. Like where we could say, we recommend Ag RR in order for this person to be able to find an income producing way on this property to maintain the property. But in our recommendation of that, we also recommend that like a secondary step would be historic designation. So it's putting it the other direction, but
Question, like if a full application for historic designation was submitted and after reviewing it from that aspect with more information, I mean, is there ever a sense where that would not get a positive recommendation? Or would it be something that if the board recommends they start the process, it's almost a guarantee that it's gonna.
if we push the ball, I would say on this property, and you have much more experience with this than I do. On this property, we have that the house is contributing. The house right now is the furthest condition from the original, though the best maintained structure on the property. The furthest condition from original, but somebody, you know, when we have someone in here who cares about the other historic structures on the property, then, you know, when the renovation to the house starts happening, then that's where you can say, okay, you know, wooden clapboard siding, you know, double hung wooden windows, you know, sort of things, you know, as those processes happen. But like as of right now, there's really a lot of outbuildings that are, yeah, the house is physically the same geometric shape of a gabled L on the public side. But you know, it really is it's a nice farmstead.
It still reads as to what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
you can tell,
whatever, I mean, you know, it's no different than what I would say, like if, I mean, I can't quite tell from these photos exactly, but you know, it's no different than Stip Bender Farm where there's vinyl siding and replacement windows on the main house. I mean,
Right.
but it is still what it is. So it's, you know, you've got an intact farm, which is becoming very rare in this county with not just a barn, but multiple outbuildings in the house. And, you know, personally as a board member, I guess I come into this thinking, okay, are we being asked to support the rezone, number one, you know, for the purposes of what the property owner wants to do, and as a board member to support the rezone or something that will allow him to have this reuse, this income producing reuse. I want to recommend that it be locally designated because that's what we do. Because we want to try to preserve and protect the historic resources of this county. And so if that's the best way of doing that, to ensure that, you know, we can work with the owners to get a really good outcome on any kind of restoration or rehabilitation work that they do. Because we're not an owner's board to work with by any means when it comes to that. But it also protects it from, you know, if you sell it in 20 years, the next owner has to abide by protecting this property. And they don't just say, let's just knock everything down and, you know.
Or if something happens where they decide to, and I don't know how close you actually are to 46, I need to get back on my Google map. But like, let's say they decide to move 46 by 200 feet, you know, your protected property helps that discussion go a direction that preserves the farm. So, yeah, like they said, let's straighten 46 and go, you know. Which would be a
But
big
it-
project.
and it-
I would.
I mean, you
They've
know-
already done it kind of the one time, but.
That's the thing, the local
Talk about
designation
floodplain.
can sometimes get a bad rap because it gets this image of, you know, oh, this board's just gonna tell me what I can do with my property, but very often what it is helping you better protect your property. For instance, we had a case with another designated property, another part of the county, where there was going to be a cell tower built right next to their locally designated National Register listed house. And they would have been staring at this thing. And so that helped protect that property because we could, you know, we could work against it. Her mother's own house, you drive by it when you head north on I-69, and the local designation is, I really believe, what kept the highway from taking it.
Well, and it's saved the other houses around it too.
Exactly, so it
was
is
one of
something
the-
that can help, and
Yeah.
she's a really good person to say, I have a locally designated property. And it is or it isn't a bad thing, you know.
And if somebody wanted to build a huge housing addition next to you, I mean, it goes through, it's got a little bit more
I don't
protection, yeah.
know. But there's not a huge, the rest of the land around it is owned by me, so I don't think that
Yeah.
anyone can build, I hope. But I see where you're coming from. So if it gets a designation, I guess I have a couple of questions. I want to preserve it, so I think we're on the same,
Right,
word. But I have to preserve it like as I have the funds to do it. So say it gets designated and you come look at it and say, well, you need to do this, this and this to this barn. And it's gonna cost me $50,000 and I don't have.
yeah, we don't go that way.
That's not the way.
What we
Okay,
do, yeah. What we do is, if we designate a property, then what happens is if you're doing maintenance, and that's what I said before to them, but I don't expect that, you know, since that wasn't your thing, we weren't really talking to you about it. But if you need to replace some of the aluminum, you know, roofing on there, or replace a board and paint it, like, you don't need to come to us for that. That's just maintenance. If you decided that you wanted to turn the barn into like a Norwegian nightclub with glass walls and,
Lots
you
of
know, smoke
lights.
machines or something, then it has to come to us and we have to say like, well, is it the public facing side? Is it the non-public facing side? So we're mostly concerned with, when you're doing big changes, like replacing, you know, let's say that you decided that you wanted to replace all the wood on the exterior of the barn because it was too far gone or whatever. Then you'd come to us and we'd say like, what kind of wood is it? How wide are the planks? You know, that sort of thing. But basic maintenance,
We
we're.
might save you some money.
Yeah, she's got the barn grant knowledge, so, but then, with things like the house, you know, the house, how it is fine, maintaining of the house is fine. But like, let's say, and I don't know, I'm not looking at your windows right now, but let's say your windows are all from, you know, 1997 and they're all vinyl windows. If you went to replace them, we might say, well, is there a way that you could go back to a wooden sash? Is there a way that, you know, that's, you know, where we would have those discussions, but.
Do you have like recommended contractors that would have those types of supplies?
We have friends of historic preservation, but it's kind of an ever-changing, it's an ever, like, you know, there's definitely people who specialize in historic restoration, but the other thing about historic properties is they're often meant to be layperson friendly. So really, anybody who works in construction should be able to pick up the skills to do things that are the historic way of doing
I
it.
noticed that he
It's
was
just not
saying
everything
that
they
have
have the
Lauren Wood.
patience. Yeah,
So like local contractors like Lauren Wood would, they're done
Yeah.
these types of projects.
Yeah, and it's kind of a matter of, yeah, how sensitive, you know, you express it to others and like, you know, Chris Sturbaum and Golden Hands and, yeah, there's all kinds of different
And I
ones,
can't
but yeah.
think of, Nancy Hiller's husband's name.
Mark Longy.
Yeah, Mark Longacre, yeah.
Thank you. He's the one that did, the Stafford's Barn
Mhm,
project and others,
yeah.
and did Duncan's Barn. as
I'd
well.
like to add, from a firsthand experience, that might relieve a little bit of your, shall we say, anxiety or confusion. You may not have that, but in case you are, first of all, I understand you came to the board talking about one thing, and now the board is suggesting you might address another thing, which I think it might be a fun thing for you and the farmstead, because again, to have a farmstead with all these buildings intact, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm in the process of restoring, redoing a place that was almost totally wiped out by I-69. And it was one of the first properties in Monroe County ever purchased once the territory was opened up. And there's all sorts of other fun facts, which I'm really excited about. That being said, I'm doing it bit by bit because it is an expensive endeavor. I'm getting ready. I'm not saying this to be Tony or obnoxious or arrogant, but just to kind of show you I'm in the same ballpark. I understand what you're talking about. To put in a bridge, and this bridge is gonna probably be 80,000-90,000. And it's not gonna, not because of glamour, just because it's an expensive endeavor. I'm working on the inside. I've done quite a bit already, but I'm doing it bit by bit as I can. The beautiful thing that I have found about this board, I have been not on the board, and I've come to the board for help. I've been on the board and I come for help. And I realize board members changed over years, but I've always found this board to be extremely helpful. Again, when I was off of the board and begging for help, and they didn't know me from anybody, and I was just trying to stop I-69. And I mean, I was literally trying to stop them from bulldozing the entire place, not just the house. And so obviously you're not going to make decisions tonight, but when you do go home, talk it over with your family, friends, colleagues, whatever the case may be. I think you should think about the local designation for lots of reasons. One, I think this board, you'll find, will really help you. And like my colleague said, they even save you money or help you save money. They have lots of ideas. And I think local designation is the best tool for saving a property or a structure or some historic site, say like a stone wall, if it's designated, more so than state or federal. And that speaks volumes right there. That speaks volumes. But in,
We send out an annual letter that we, you know, Tammy just presented at the beginning of the evening. And it's basically just a reminder that if you're going to make any major changes to your property, that you need a certificate of appropriate from us, appropriateness from us. Yeah, just so happened.
Add an extra.
good idea.
But yeah, we're, and we don't have high turnover or anything. I've been here since whatever, 2008. But,
Similar, like, because we have part of the property is with the Sycamore Land Trust, so they come out and
Okay.
inspect it.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that right?
So,
Not completely
yeah.
familiar with the concept.
So, I don't know, I feel like I feel like I want to make sure that we get him moving the right direction for being able to earn income from his property. So he can continue to maintain the property. But I also think that we should seriously discuss the fact that it's intact Monroe County Farmstead. With some outbuildings in great shape, and I know I can only see the larger barn and the smaller barn, but some of the other things that you mentioned, and who knows what other little things are out there,
I think there's probably a lot of. things.
yeah.
Sounds
Um,
exciting.
You just walk the property and there's like old farm equipment that's set against a tree and a tree grew around it.
And Danielle's not gonna brag, but I know she spent, lots of time at like Matthew's mansion documenting, stone statues and things like that. Like it's just amazing some of the things you'll find out around on any farm, but especially some of our farms here where we've got.
I'm wondering if Don has any, it's easy to forget that we've got somebody on Zoom. And I'm
Got half a Don face up there.
I know, I can only see half of Don's face, but it's like, whether or not he has.
Don from up high there on the
I
screen.
look at it from time to
Yeah.
time.
I know, anything to interject or ask questions on. I know our screen is
Failing.
There's Don.
Technology.
I was trying to find my unmute button.
Oh,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting an education on this whole matter as well as what are the possibilities for the various options for taking care of things here. So I don't have any substantive comments except to say it's an education for me too, as far as what the options might be. I think it was Danielle who said something that has impressed me more and more as I've been on the board, and that is the dwindling number of intact farmsteads. And I would agree that it's one of those things that we just need to try to take care of when we have the opportunity to do so. So this seems like it might be an opportunity. And then Devin, especially talking about the other things that might encroach upon a farmstead, and it would just be good to make sure that the farmstead is as well preserved as possible to go against the things that might come around it, like a widened highway or a subdivision or something. So I'm certainly in favor of trying to preserve the farm, but that's what the owner would like. Yeah.
And
My goal is to preserve the farm and all the property. The rest, like it's that plat is 20 acres, but then there's 64 acres with including that 20 acres around it. And I'd also like to just keep the way it is. I thought someday my wife and I may want to retire in the very back of the property, but like build a house in the very
It's
back.
like these properties
Yeah,
yeah,
are
back
here.
there, yeah. And essentially, like, what we might look at is, and I don't know how our overlay interacts with like the Sycamore Land Trust thing. That's a thing we haven't ever gotten into my knowledge.
well, I know, the Beaumont house backs up to.
I know it backs up to, but as far as if it has both things on it.
No.
But like if this one with the little tab here, that little angular tab, if we only designated that part of the property, then, didn't do the back part, or, there's different versions of things that can be done, but, that'd be up for discussion later. But I also noticed that when I'm looking at the property transfers, that the earliest property owners are the Kings themselves. So I assume this is the like original King farm after which the road is named.
I think it is.
So that's another thing that's, in Monroe County history, just to have the farms, a lot of the roads are named after, because as we know here in Monroe County, it's usually family names, if not geographic descriptors. So I don't know. I feel like we're kind of at a standstill, but
Well, I have another question for clarification. So this gets back, Tammy, to the original petition and going before the other board. Just to clarify again, if we could say, I'm trying to figure out why, if there is a benefit for him to try to continue with the original rezone as opposed to just pursuing an HP overlay. if he just did an HP overlay that then allows the tourist home use.
Is it a time thing?
So there's a time thing. It would almost be a withdrawal of that original AgRR rezone and then start a new HP overlay rezone with all the information needed.
Okay, so like if we,
Because then he would need to go and gather the testimonies, the history, the map,
site
you know, and
plan,
like
yeah.
kind of come up with a site plan
Yeah.
and any other documentation that would be acceptable for this board to, you know, review and then push through. And then it would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals
Okay.
because a tourist home is not allowed in a fringe zone, period. Like, we're dealing with a wonky old former fringe of Bloomington zone, is what he's in right now. So like it was,
so we could
from the planner who
basically,
took this in, I'm sure it was just a straight like, well, yep, rezoned to AgRR, and then it was, yeah.
Julie noticed.
Julie, who
yeah.
noticed that,
Yeah.
who noticed the
well,
second.
that's, I'm thinking about what Devin kind of was proposing potentially earlier. Is if this board, if our comments back were that we would support the rezone with the condition of pursuit of, or however it should be worded, of the HP overlay as
Just
part of this
suggested.
process.
Can I
I-
pursue them like in parallel? Like,
I know,
Yeah.
what
Here's
from
what
his
I
AgRR
have
can
an
we take?
I
for
have
his
an
HP?
idea, is that, in order to keep this rezone going forward, perhaps, allow a written commitment, that you would have a written commitment that you would have recorded prior to getting to that last final commissioner's approval stage,
okay,
that by X date, you will apply for it. And then that would give you the time that you think you might need to, you know, get the information together of the site. Does that seem, I mean,
Yeah, well,
because
it's-
from a planning standpoint,
Yeah.
we need like sometimes a fixed date
Right.
I
that
know,
we can
that's it.
enforce.
so.
Yeah, it makes
I'm not
the-
used to
the
doing the
commissioners-
preparation stuff on a.
And written commitments are something that makes the commissioners
Right.
comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Danielle, what, from your professional opinion, what sort of time frame do you feel like is a generally reasonable time frame? Like if we were to set a date, you know, and say, because if he needed to come forward with an HP application with all that information, you know, we know that that doesn't just come out of the woodwork right away, that you go to the property and you go like, tell me.
Well,
Like, you
yeah,
know.
especially if he doesn't have like a lot of history or
Right.
written about it, or something. You
Um,
don't need, you
a whole
know,
lot,
a whole nomination or anything, but you still need a little bit of something and documenting the structures and, but I mean, that's even part of. I mean, when somebody does a local designation process, I mean, that's still something that from a staff level, I mean, you all have to be involved to a certain extent as well. So I mean, you have to have your time. I don't know if it's gonna be you or Drew, I don't know.
Yeah,
Whoever.
and I kind
but-
of keep thinking back to the Ward House that we mentioned earlier out in the new Unionville area. I mean, it was a hand-drawn map. He had everything like A, B, C, D on there and like it specifically listed like, here's this structure, here's what I know about it, and this is like,
And that's a little bit of what, I mean, what you had
well, that
there.
map is just, because I didn't know what the site plan, this is the first time I've ever gone through any type of rezoning, so I actually came into the office, and what does this mean, a site plan, do I need to go hire
Yeah,
like the Smith Design Group to, because I'm not building anything, what, and then they told me, oh, you just take your plat and just kind of roughly draw out what.
mhm.
where
And that's
everything
what I
is.
said, it means something like that, I mean, where, you know, you could even have Duncan come out to help do an assessment of the barn, and, you know, he could tell you, like, you know, that's what this is, or this was probably a chicken coop
'Cause
or
does
a
he
corn
need,
crib or something.
does he need to come in with all
Right,
those things
yeah.
right away, or is there an initial step when he first applies to HP overlay? So
I
the
mean, the
person you should
HP
do is
overlay, there's an application that you would be submitting that is submitting what is requested.
So it would be with all those things, there's not like a preliminary, like we had tonight with the vestibule, we could get in, so there's not like an initial filing and then, bring us all the information filing, it's all.
It's kind of just like submit your application. If staff finds something that's missing, we'll kind of hold it in limbo until you get that last missing piece in.
Yeah.
And then we would put it on the agenda for this
Yeah.
meeting and then get it rolling through the process.
I see on the chart database for this, it says wall. You have a stone wall in
There's
there?
a stone wall, kind of lining the entrance to the driveway off the King Road.
Just line the road or just line the driveway?
It lines the driveway. I guess it's kind of flared out at the roads, not much.
Or like, or maybe it's remnant of. Like, yeah, I feel like I'm mentally an abstraction, like, do you think like 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, like, well,
Oh.
yeah, like,
No, well, I mean, because that's what I was trying to think of for him as far as the process.
like, what's the simplest version of a thing that we would approve? You know?
Well, I mean, he's here tonight. What's the next step that he has to go through with the next committee? When does that happen? And so from there,
I
like,
think when you're on the agenda for the plan commission, is it gonna be in April
There's
or in May?
administration meeting on the 2nd and a planning
Okay,
on the 5/17. Another meeting on June 7th.
so
22nd.
it's possible that you could get your recommendation from the plan commission as early as that third week of May,
17th.
the 17th. Yeah, that's when you go to
And it
plan
would go
commission.
to the actual commissioners then on the 20th, in June, a month later then.
We could, it depends on, it'd be 2 to 3 weeks after the plan commission meeting. Just depends on staff juggling lots of cases and the commissioners meetings also,
Sure.
like sometimes they take a week off or there's a mess or something.
Or you recommend I write a letter stating that I will pursue historical preservation designation.
Well, so what it is really, I think, is that the board has the ability to make a recommendation to the plan commission, and the plan commission could adopt that recommendation, or they could forward that recommendation also then to the commissioners. So it's like, I mean, if you.
One of whom sent you here. Yeah,
One of
so-
whom said.
Yeah.
And so, if the board feels strongly enough about this property that they would like to see it go through the HPO process from a planner standpoint, I think sometimes you all formulating that commit or that condition of approval as perhaps a written commitment that the application would be submitted by certain dates, I think makes sense. Like I said, the commissioners like written commitments. We actually rewrote some of those conditions that you guys suggested for the one on Arlington Road recently.
Okay, yeah,
We had to kick back and rewrite those as written commitments.
okay. Would
Because
it-
those are recorded just before they're approved by the commissioners. And then it's sort of set in stone and we have something to be like, oh, well, we didn't get this application in on
Right.
time.
No,
And
we
so
should-
now we need to like.
I know, I'm returning to Danielle, but it's because I know she's got the feet on the ground experience of doing the labor and all this. Would there be a way that the commitment would be to submit the application before that other process is finished? Like, it's sort of like, if it's good, looks like it might be finished in June, would it be unreasonable to say like within 6 weeks? Is that too fast? Is that unreasonable? Like, I don't know.
It shouldn't be,
Okay.
but, I know not everybody's familiar with how to research their property and apply for local
Well,
designation.
sure, well,
Yeah.
So that's the thing, you know, I don't mind providing some of that guidance. in the direction.
Yeah, I want to make sure that whatever we set up is not setting anybody up for, for failure. or something.
Well, that's what I was asking, that's what I was asking for timeframe, you know, is
Yeah.
if he would have to have this done, like you're saying, would he have to have this done in part of application done before everything else is finally
Right.
approved?
Not if it's in a written commitment. So the written commitment would give it a little bit of flexibility for when that application is.
So we could say that, so he does the written commitment, and then we could say, put this out, by our July meeting, or whatever, we want to see, or August, or some month we could pick to say that he makes the application by the deadline, so that we can review it at that meeting.
Yeah, I think just hit the application deadline would be, must apply for historic preservation overlay for the property
Yeah.
by.
I mean,
And that would
To
then,
apply, there's a lot of like information you need to give about the property.
well, that's what.
you're already getting support.
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the
Support,
thing, I mean,
but-
he's just hearing about this tonight. He doesn't know anything about
I
it.
know, that's.
So that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, I don't want to put too
Tried to-
tight of
Make
a
sure we're not putting too
deadline.
much, yeah.
And
Yeah.
then there's- and we're offering, I'm offering some help, and I have a whole lot less free time than I used to. And I know Duncan would help, but, you know, I say, so it's like, just
Yeah.
trying to give a little bit of that flexibility for everybody to get that done, you know?
I would like to do it, I just need to make sure I have time.
Right.
Sure. I am a surgeon and I have to take call, like, I'm like.
You got less
busy.
time
You have
than
to
the
work
rest of
too?
us.
I'm busy. It's like 3 little kids at home and stuff.
It's been like 6 months, you're gonna do 18.
I just
And
gotta
I
make sure I
tried
have
really,
time.
to be really good and not interrupt.
Oh, no,
But
I interrupt all the time.
Okay, but I really feel like we're putting this gentleman on the spot.
He's scaring the hell out of us.
Yeah, exactly, Don, exactly. And
We don't want to scare you.
I don't think that's fair. First of all, we would love to have this property, I believe, or consider it for local designation. But here he's wanting to do this other thing, and which I understand why, and, you know, trying to support the cause and all that financially. But I do think we need to provide time for him to digest this, to see what this is all about. So then when we suggest a deadline, time, I understand, I love deadlines. Deadlines get things done. But on the other hand, I do think we have to be lenient here. I
You
really,
don't wanna make it too tight.
I beg your pardon.
Don't wanna make it too tight.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah.
I almost, this is me with my alternative educator hat on. I would almost love to see that we have like a deadline of like turning in paperwork, but if not everything's there and we need the help or support for a little bit longer to finish the process, that's okay too. Like, I don't know if there's a way to say like, we need such and such in by such and such date. And we'll help you complete anything that's missing, you know, sort of thing. I know that that's gray, very gray area to put it in, but I know we also probably want to, for everyone's sake, move forward on a definitive thing tonight. Do we have any sort of motion that we need to discuss? Does anybody want to?
Well, and then, I mean, I heard early on from you to like, just make it an optional, like, you should, I mean, at your own accord. I don't know, I've heard different voices tonight.
And you're talking to someone
And there will be a vote.
who has a locally designated
Right.
place, and I'm very, very grateful. Well, heavens, I'm grateful for so many reasons, but I do, regardless of who would come to this table, I just don't want to force feed them.
Right.
I don't wanna scare you away.
Exactly. And I think perhaps we should deal with this tourist home, for lack of better terminology, that issue first, and then hopefully he would be, and his colleagues,
Right.
family, friends.
Well,
whatever.
I think that's the thing, is we don't, there's nothing on right now that we're necessarily voting for.
Correct.
It's not a formal petition, so we're just kind of throwing it out,
Right,
that it can be thrown back to planning commission. Basically, we've discussed it, and this is what we discussed. what we would like to see happen. I mean, in the meantime, the owner can decide, yes, I want to go forward with this and do this letter of commitment. And then, yeah, we haven't put any, you can commit to doing this, and then, I mean, it could become even a formal discussion at our next meeting. I mean, as far as any kind of timeframe or, you know, assistance, I mean, it's just, we're not been asked to actually vote on anything. So,
Yeah.
exactly.
And we're just here to recommend.
Right.
Danielle, do you feel like you have eloquent words of recommendation that you
I
would,
feel like I'm in traveling all night.
does anybody else feel like they've got eloquent? I mean, Tammy is the one who mentioned deadlines, but you know, my initial would be to say like, we support the move to this to Ag-RR with the recommendation that he pursue the historic overlay, but that doesn't put a date on it. So,
Is there a website that I can go to look at the, like, what it takes to apply?
The requirements and all.
Requirements?
There is. Wait, can I get your take one more time? We're just.
so my initial take was.
You were
like-
babbling.
We
Yeah.
support the
Yeah.
zone to IRR, but.
Well,
we're-
with the recommendation that the petitioner move forward on the historic designation overlay,
HBO or.
yeah, HB overlay, which puts no date on it at all, but encourages very strongly. But that doesn't really form any sort of agreement, it's just
It's us recommending.
yeah.
Is that, you're grinning in a funky way.
I
Tammy.
know,
Is it-
I just, if I take this back to Jackie, she's gonna be like, what are we supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
Um,
So,
Well, I guess, because that's kind of how I feel like. you know,
Yeah.
What are we supposed to do with this?
I know,
Because,
I know,
this,
what would Julie like?
you know, I mean, I love Julie and I love the fact that she's got her back all the time on this, but
Yeah.
what it does, that's what I said, we don't really have something to vote on.
it'll come, so it'll come back, yeah, it'll come back to Julie, and she'll know if we touched it or
We're
not.
just trying to
Um,
educate
so,
the property.
I mean, and if we were to say, okay, so, the fastest his process is gonna go through is for him to get approval by June?
Well, I'm looking at the calendar, so
Okay,
May, sorry, this one. May 2nd is gonna be the admin session where they just preliminarily discuss it, and I would bring, and Drew would then bring what we say here, kind of, to that meeting. Then comes the HP meeting again on the 16th,
mhm,
and then the next night is the formal plan commission meeting that they would then have the potential to make a recommendation to the commissioners, or if they think they need more information, which happened with Hinkle, then they would
mhm.
kick it to the next month until that information was gained.
They want a recommendation from us, right? On the rural.
The plan review committee suggested that this petition just be reviewed by this board.
Sure.
They just want us to hash it out for 2 hours.
She said that I could potentially learn from,
Yeah,
you know,
so,
Oh, yeah, what did, I
options.
wasn't at that
She
meeting.
said that I could
What?
learn, like, some resources for preserving the barn. She didn't
Uh-huh.
necessarily say that I was going to be applying for historic preservation overlay, but I'm not against it. I would like to know.
She
more
she had to
about
be
it.
a little
Yeah.
bit vague on, you know,
Yeah.
what would happen,
Um,
obviously, but, you know.
should we have the commitment be that we hear from him before our next meeting? Like, I'm trying to think of a way that we can sort of volley it back and forth. I don't want it to be a last minute suspenseful, like May 16th or whatever day we meet, we go, no, don't do the thing. I don't want it to turn into that, which I don't think it would, but is there a way that we can give him a window of time to think outside of this room? And then we come up with a better solution. So I'm trying to think of a way that we could word it to buy everyone the adequate amount of time.
I think
without
No,
delaying the process.
we could put you back on the agenda for May 16th for this meeting.
Mhm.
You could come back armed with more knowledge on what an HP overlay process is like. We can give you the example of the Staffords. We could teach you what a historic adaptive reuse is in case you ever wanted to utilize that tool.
Or any of the other buildings or the house itself.
Yeah, if you wanted to convert the barn into a short-term rental as well in the future or something like.
Like building.
Then that would then give you a little bit of time to think about the extent of what HP overlay means for your property. You can come back and discuss this more here. And then the next night, Drew will have some information to take to the plan commission. He'll pop up a slide.
Who's
This
making
is
the
what
final
was finally
decision. Yeah.
recommended, or, I mean, like, that's an idea.
So
Or you could just,
at that point, our recommendation tonight is for you to explore the HP overlay, because we more than likely will strongly recommend it at the next meeting, I don't know. That's-
do you want to formulate that into a condition, or do you want to just have, just the HP board met, this is what was discussed, and this is the action? I think. probably that
I
would
think
work
that's the
better.
best,
Yeah.
to me, that's the best, because we're not, like, again, we're
Yeah, we're not
not
voting on-
actually voting on anything, we're not given, anything specific, it's like, just send this poor guy here to be overwhelmed by everything.
I
No.
like to learn about new things.
And I want to be completely transparent. Not that these people aren't being transparent, they are, but I would like to go on record and say that there are a lot of beautiful places, structures, et cetera, in Monroe County that have national historic preservation, but they don't have local. Some have state, some have national, they don't have local. So I do think that we need to give him plenty of time to do his research and find out all the facts, regulations, rules, the good, the bad, and the in-between before. I just don't want him going away feeling like he's being boxed in.
Yeah. And I would also invite you, I guess, to, if you have any big questions now, or between now and the next meeting, feel free to send those our way. Tammy, are you gonna continue to be the main point of contact?
I'm gonna try to get Drew to be that person.
Okay, you're gonna try to transition to Drew. Yeah, so,
Except that might be a little rough at times.
I mean, I'll provide Drew with some example, like here's
Right.
the Stafford report, the Stafford application.
Yeah.
Those would be helpful tools for you to
Sure.
look at. Is there another property that you think of as a similar?
Well, what I was going to
Mind.
suggest is, giving him my contact information in Duncan's,
that'd be good, yeah.
so that we can assist
can go
him with
explore.
walkthrough.
Mhm.
Do you think you would do that before the next HP board meeting?
I'm sure that we could figure it out. I know Duncan had to postpone some barn visits, but I'm sure that when something's written in the county is.
Does that mean?
It's easy.
To actually go to the property.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on
Yeah.
site and, I mean, that's what he does with the barn foundation, do walkthroughs of barns, give assessments and ideas, and look at things.
Ages of things and such.
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, so that it's something that we could, walk property with you, and, get an idea of what are the buildings, and so that way too, if you're compiling, even a hand-drawn site map, we have a little more information of like, oh, there's this many contributing building structures, et cetera, kind of just get that done at least before that next meeting.
And then also just as a quick shorthand for you, like the designations that Debbie mentioned, those essentially protect at the level that they're at. So county designation protects you at the county level, state at the state level, national at the federal level. So if something was a national registered property and I-69 was going to affect it, that's like the big bubble. But if the county wants to widen Kings Road and take a whole bunch of your frontage, that's where the county designation is gonna help. And then once you do the county designation, it's possible to go through the hoops of doing the state and the national.
So would
those
the
are just
fact that the
different
state
hoops.
wanted to widen 46 and wipe out some of, then the
We,
county.
the county would fight with the state on that. We would have a big argument with them.
Okay,
But if it's already state designated, then that's one of the things that they would know right off the bat. But yeah, like for example, Maple Grove Road Historic District is, it's county and state,
It's national.
national. So yeah, with I-69, that was one of the big things that they would always monitor. They would always have to show it on the map. Maple Grove Road Rural Historic District. And so it was always there on the map because they had to avoid any negative impacts, you know. So anyway, so just know that too, that you can kind of enter at different points, but if we do the county, you know, we can also build you up to the other ones too, so.
But I will add this,
Mhm.
I must add this, that I was told by the federal highway people in 2012, someone who wanted to save my parents' property, go for local, because local was the best tool to save that property, even though the federal highway and the state highway were wanting to take everything.
They all pay attention to the local, right?
Yes, they could.
It does,
It's a very powerful tool.
Keep
Are there
River
any,
National
like,
Register.
are there any
looks like that.
downsides to having it like, registered or like, that people complained about after getting it under?
It's
The local
usually issues,
The local doesn't, yeah, or any type of doesn't.
usually it would be issues of, you know, like you had mentioned possibly like building another house. If you had your heart set on building another house in front of this one, that's where we go, but if you already are thinking back to the property, we've had like the pink, didn't they build something? The other Whippoorwill Hill, didn't they build something new?
Yeah, the Tate Tatum Farm,
Tatum.
which is now called Whippoorwill Hill. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's an event center, it's on, Fairfax, Railtown Road. But you can't see it.
Which is
from the road.
Dillman Road, Dillman becomes Railtown.
Yeah, but it's, they had it's a 1822 farm, and they brought in another barn, event barn, and, but they're not locally designated. They're on the National Register, but there's a lot of documentation out there that shows that, National Register listed and locally designated properties, very rarely have any kind of drawbacks, even if you try to sell it, because you're finding somebody who wants something that's intact and preserved.
I wouldn't want to sell it to someone who's gonna tear it down.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's the type of thing that it's, a lot of people will make you feel negative about it sometimes, because they think, oh, it's going to restrict me from doing what I want. or
And it
selling
only
it.
applies to the outside. If you wanted to gut the inside of the house and turn it into a roller skating rink,
Like inside.
we'd
the
have to do an
barn.
adaptive reuse for it to be a roller skating rink. But we're more concerned with the exterior and public facing.
But yeah, and again, I'm coming up to speed with a lot of things, a very slow learning curve. There is an annual report, right? We talked about that last month. So every year you have to write a report, right?
And if
For-
nothing is,
No.
if
On
nothing has
your property.
happened, like.
No, we
No.
just sent out the
We
letter.
send out a letter
This board
sent
sent
out
out
a
a letter
to the
just to
owners.
remind the property owners,
So they don't have to do an annual report.
no.
So,
With Sycamore, they send us a letter and they come out and they make sure.
Oh,
they
yeah.
build anything on
That's like
places.
Division of Forestry
And,
does that too.
You know, we
classified.
might, if we had the staff for that, we might do something like that. Nonprofits will do that. Indiana Landmarks, which is the statewide nonprofit that has covenants on buildings. They will monitor, those covenants and all that, but.
Being real candid, this isn't a police force. We're here to help.
Tammy has
We're here
had
to help you.
too much to do.
But even still, that's not, I don't think I've ever felt that this board was heavy-handed, overzealous,
Yeah.
The property
police.
behind it, I'm sorry, like, is platted out as a minor subdivision that I'm hoping to never develop, because that's my wife and I own that rest of that property too.
Mhm.
But there'd be just the only thing that the plat has an access, like
4 lots.
a road to go next to that barn, like right through that field next,
Mhm.
so that'd be the only.
There is an easement. The
There's a-
plat has, I believe it's a 50-foot wide easement.
Yeah, I don't, but there's no way we put a 50-foot wide road, but there's an easement in that 50 feet where we could put like a driveway.
Utilities and, yeah, it allows for utilities
Okay.
and drive access to the other, I think it's 4 lots that are up there.
Designated historical wouldn't interfere with us, like, putting the stuff that's already on there.
No, because we would know that going into it. It would probably just be, correct me if I'm wrong, but we would know that there was an easement and the easement was 50 feet. When you were putting in the drive, we would probably just revisit it for appropriateness. But we'd probably look at materials and things like that. So if you wanted it to be a neon green stripe going back to the back, we'd have something to say about it. But if you wanted it to be gravel or blacktop, we'd probably be okay
I
with it.
think it's,
So it's this.
So, yeah, so we would know that going into it, that there's an easement there already, and then it would just be probably a certificate of appropriateness when a surface and size and, yeah, if you wanted to line it with a hot pink fence or, have it like disco floor, yeah, we'd have something to say, but if it's a normal material, then we more than likely approve it.
well, I'll definitely be interested in checking the process out, and yeah, I just need some time.
Yeah,
because
for
of-
sure.
To get all this
Yeah.
stuff together.
Well, and that's our big thing too, is that we, you want to protect it. We want you to be able to have the income coming in to help preserve it and protect it. Because you could just as easily say like, oh yeah, that property that I own, I don't really pay much attention to, let the whole thing fall apart, and we don't want that to happen either. So, we definitely want you to have the next step taken care of too.
Tammy, the application is out on the open, what is it called?
Open Gov, yeah.
But is that, I can't remember, does that allow you to scroll through it before you fill anything out?
It has what the requirements are.
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, so
So you can get that to him, so you can get a sense of what the application was like, and,
Mhm.
which is not that.
So our current recommendation to you is to explore the historic preservation overlay process. Ask questions that come up, reach out to Danielle and Duncan. Do you have any other questions for us before we move on to any other items?
No,
I know
no, I
we're-
think so. Daniel and Duncan, we'll be able to find hopefully a time to walk the property.
So I will send you links, an example, the application link as well. I will send you contact information for Danielle and Duncan. I'll have 3 days.
And then our hope would be if we can see you next month, armed with the knowledge that you want to get and with the knowledge that Duncan and Daniel are able to help you get and gather, then we can all make a better informed day before decision. Or the other meeting.
I don't think this is a motion
No.
necessarily.
Just a recommendation.
Thank you very
We'll
much.
just do a summary in the
Yes.
report and add a paragraph in there
Appreciate all the information.
for now.
Appreciate you taking the time. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Then I will just read the information.
We'll get with you in the next day or two.
Danielle and Duncan, and set up a time to meet you.
Let it percolate.
Yeah.
Yeah, to chat with my wife and talk about learning tonight.
Thank you.
And I appreciate all the time.
Try to repeat it, yeah. no.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
evening. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
so.
so now moving on to other things. Does anybody have any updates from the work plan? Rather than going through each item, we'll just do any updates if people have updates.
I do.
Okay, Danielle, would you
I'm
like to
full of
share?
it, because I watched the meeting last night.
Okay.
So I want to just,
I know she wants to do the
you have,
CLG report.
it's
though.
7:30.
Yeah,
And the CLG is due at the end of the month. And I
Okay.
have to have two answers, unless we want to ask for an extension.
have you received anything from anybody? Is the first question.
As far as,
CLG updates, because I know
CLG
you've not
update.
received anything from me.
I actually have gotten like 5 or 6 resumes already.
Okay, so that's part of the
making
CLG.
progress.
Part of the CLG is the resume part.
Yeah, and
So you
then,
really do want
there's a-
a resume?
or just,
I gave
you know,
her a
you've
2-paragraph.
got a
bio.
paragraph, yeah, paragraph, this
I
is
gave her 3
a
pages.
loose
I think I could
page,
find something, but
a loose with your.
I don't have anything like that.
I'm
Because I
just like,
retired.
I'm not changing this, I'm just gonna do.
I will find it.
Paragraph
Yeah,
was
paragraph.
just fine,
Paragraph.
a paragraph was adequate.
I propose we ask for an extension,
I'm okay with that.
if you want more time.
Particularly
No, at
because
least I
there's
won't
a
have, I mean, I do
change.
have Polly's signature already, and I can obtain Julie's hopefully tomorrow.
I mean, I'm just
Meeting.
throwing that out,
Mhm.
you know. and,
With the change of staff, that's a good reason to kind
There
of.
you
Well,
go.
exactly, that's
Yeah.
what
And
I'm-
you can orient him to the process
I would like
by
to
getting
maybe
usage and.
bring up just the one thing that's really, that I think maybe should be discussed.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
That, so extension, sounds like we're gonna request that. I'll put that out there and CC the board.
And I don't mind asking Steve my own self, because we've got this
I was just
Alexander
shocked we got
Memorial
6
grant coming in
weeks.
too.
We only got 6
Yeah.
weeks, so,
Well, I think because they're feeling underdone about stuff,
okay.
but they've already, I mean, I was already told we could get an extension on Alexander Memorial Grant if we needed it. I was like, no way in heck, we're gonna get that damn project. So, but I just, so.
You're
yeah,
looking
that's why
why
I
I'm
put
carving
that
the
out.
panels myself.
I will wanna like,
with your mortarboard.
I will wanna go over each of the districts next month and
Okay.
just confirm that. But the one that's really, it is, what would they call this? Item 9. Item 9 is the thing that I think I need most help with, and I believe that one of the board members wrote this up last year summarizing 2019.
I think I did, which is why I made a note to myself that I probably need to help you with.
So
The
2020, and we're only looking at 2021. So it's kind of crazy because they were asking like, what properties did we have locally designated? Well, we had a property designated in 2020,
Mhm.
and we have one that has started now with the
Yeah.
Arlington Road, we'll have a 2022, but like, we don't have a local designated in 2021. So that will be a none, but just making a
Okay.
note there for you guys.
So, but that also could include our other work plan items as far as
For that item,
for the 9,
I
item 9, the
let me
general
make it
recognition.
big. I haven't read it in a week. Oh,
Does it
that is-
include education and
They
stuff?
won't let us mention that other one? That's ludicrous.
They're skipping it like every other year.
Yeah.
We're doing every
But
other
that
year.
seems silly that you can't even mention.
I know,
So
I know, it's kind of a,
provide a
well,
list.
you can
Because
put
there
it
are
in
events,
there.
I've seen events and observances.
You can put it in.
So like,
there.
I would say, any progress that we made on anything, couldn't that go in that category? Things like, the,
Really?
yeah,
I think so. I mean, I thought Danielle did a great response
because you
last
did the
time.
trivia thing on there. from
And if you-
2019.
Want to brainstorm some ideas, but like this, I mean, they give you a review of what was wrong every year. It's just like more education. And so, yeah, this, whatever this was adequate last year. They were, or the last application. Great. So, that's the one thing I think I just want to bring up to the board's attention, not to maybe
Okay.
be a collaborative effort or have one person just take the reins.
Well, that's why I said that's why I said we need an extension.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also for me
yeah.
to take time to write something,
Oh, right.
I just feel like as past chair duties. That might be something
Thank you.
to take on. Because I read that, I was like, what, what's so long ago? You know, but I don't remember what we did last year, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, it looks to me like you can clone some of this from 2019.
To a certain extent.
You know,
it's
there's
just
quite a
like-
bit there that's ongoing and the website
Well,
improvements.
yeah, and
and,
we,
you know,
you know, we didn't have lecture, we didn't do this and that.
Zoom, COVID hit, oh my God, the world changed.
That's the, yeah, so I think as long as they see that we were doing stuff, you know, they are, I think, more ticky about.
And keep in mind, we did not meet the first several months of the year. When was our first meeting in 2020?
It's true.
Like June?
See, that's.
It was very slow
All
going.
the, you know, it's more like, sometimes looking at the agenda, like looking at the packet, all those packets are
Oh,
gonna be.
yeah. Oh, and, well, that
That's
was in
what I said,
2020.
when I did this, I went back and I looked at agendas and packets and minutes and everything too, because it was just like, I can't remember what I did 2 weeks ago.
Hopefully that's helpful.
You know, so just like.
Okay.
you know,
That's what I
have a
did
lecture?
this morning.
We know what happened on an 1860s farm, but we don't know what happened last week. So basically, will it be a month extension on that or TBD?
I envision a month,
Okay,
I.
so we just need to get our ducks in a row and then also report to you what books or materials we've read or.
I'm done with
Well,
that.
she's
I'm
got
done with
that,
that.
if you scroll up, that's what
I'm
this
done.
is.
That's over.
And Amanda didn't submit anything, obviously, and
Yeah, I
I
saw
I made
that.
note of
I
that.
saw that reference in there.
Devin, I don't know why you didn't fill it out,
I'm mad. That's
Oh,
what I
right.
thought.
but I already did it.
Yeah, no, I thought I saw time on that, but that's okay.
Yeah, I think I made last call away. So. Just put some in for
Yeah.
2022.
I was gonna say,
Every other year.
I've already got stuff to put added for
I do have the
2022.
2021 going, so if people ever want to, it's the same link, I'm just adding tabs at the bottom. If there's something that you really think of that you want me to put on.
Well, if you need it, like, I mean,
We did better than we did the last application, so.
they're like, some schlub has been on their board, but didn't do anything last year.
So that was the main thing, but you said the district stuff. but-
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll
that
just,
never changes because we don't have the ability to apply for HPF grants to pay a consultant to come in and do national register nominations.
okay,
That's the deal.
so
you
if
know?
those are all staying the same, I will just make them
You
all black
And
and.
if they still qualify as districts, you know, if the HPA wants to give us 100% grant, then we'll hire somebody to do it. But, you know, that's the thing, they're expecting these CLGs to come up with money to match a grant, apply for a grant, like we did for the memorial, and hire a consultant to do these nominations, or do it ourselves, which we're not gonna do. So it's just, you know,
And how much would it cost, do you know, with ballpark? Like, if we went to Sanders and said, hey, Sanders, we know only 7 people live here. Would you come up with $50,000?
you know,
They
it
say
depends on the
sure.
consultant, you know, what they're gonna charge to do a
You can
district
see.
like that.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, you know. But I mean, you know, there is the CLG, there are the HPF funds, there is that grant that we can apply for, that grant fund that we can apply for to get nominations done. But you have to match it, so that's,
Yeah, so it's gotta be matching.
So the county would have to match it.
yeah,
So can that not be in the report?
they don't give you a line item for putting that in.
For an explanation.
Just an anecdotal add-on.
You know. I could add it to the general preservation accomplishments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The board discusses this every year,
that's true.
but we have no money.
And said with much more eloquence.
Yes, exactly,
Retort,
yeah.
but-
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
But it should be there. They
Yeah.
need to
No,
hear
yeah.
that you keep asking, but
or that we just don't have the funds.
the
you
do
know?
is.
I mean, it's like
the
the
do
city of
is-
Bloomington has, their preservation commission has
Unlike our sister city.
So, you know, it's just the way it is, but.
Okay, so that's CLG, you have something to say?
Yeah, a real quick question. I know this is running long, I'll make it real fast. I just, no one's ever explained to me, or maybe they have and I've missed it. We submit this report every 2 years. All right, I feel that our group makes every effort to, follow the rules, the regulations, educate ourselves, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, now, I realize that people can say, you need to do this better, you need to do this, you need to do that. Who are they that are playing God? I'm not being a smart aleck, but I really don't, and what happens with some of these other 91 counties in Indiana?
Don't even have historic.
Well, this is,
It's
no,
true,
this
I
is,
realize some of them don't, but my point, the ones that do, because it sounds like everybody gets really nervous and scared, because timeframe, all that, deadlines, and all. And so I really don't understand what would happen, we
This
just
is-
lose our
well, this is
status.
part of being a certified local government, which is an application process that the county went through, the city went through. Not every HP commission in the
Okay.
state goes through that process.
Okay.
Which becoming a certified local government gives you a higher standing,
Okay,
like being
Good to
able to
know.
apply for that grant.
That's really helpful.
When others were not able to get that grant money for the memorial,
okay.
we were one of them that they gave it to because it was specifically being set aside for CLGs.
But it does hinge around grant monies.
Well, it's one of those things.
That's
It's one
just,
of-
okay.
So these are requirements in order to keep your status as a CLG. That board has to meet these requirements, and these are set by, they're not even necessarily set by the state, they're set by the federal government, because the funding comes from the federal government, down through the states.
But again, I'm
So-
hearing money.
Is it
Well-
also what helps us with, National Register Designation?
Any of that, it gives a commission a little bit higher standing in that way.
And it's all boards and commissions in the county. The intention is to.
Well, it's for
just
historic,
raise-
for historic preservation. For historic preservation.
This
But
is
this is not
DHPA
just for
that
this
cares about
committee,
it, right?
isn't it done for all boards and commissions?
This is
Don't all
our
boards and
specific
commissions have to do
state.
This kind of thing?
Being a certified local government is through the Historic Preservation Office.
Okay, so that's a
It's
unique,
Historic Preservation Board
Designation.
But what I-
designation.
but
So
I-
these requirements are a little bit like, if you are, have any kind of, you have, other professions have to keep up with
continuing
education.
education. right.
That's
So this
exactly what
basically
she's.
what this is.
But I guess my question, Tammy, I'll throw it to you, is do other boards and commissions do something similar?
Oh,
Are the expectations the same?
Like the
Or
zoning
is
board.
this just
they
this
have to go
commission
through
because
something
of
like
what
this?
Danielle is saying?
No, I can only compare it. The only thing that seems similar to me is I do the floodplain administration.
Okay,
And
so it's
so I have to
about,
meet state requirements.
Okay.
They audit me every few years to make sure that we're keeping elevation
Yeah,
permits and
yep,
permits and.
so it's about us improving the work that we do and having, so it makes perfectly good sense. Is there a list of what we're supposed expected? Where's the expectation
It's
list?
essentially this
For this
application. You just-
designation.
Yeah, I would say it's the
I want to see
application
that.
It's what we're filling out.
Right now.
but
Yeah,
this
it's in
is,
the
So there
packet.
has to be, it's.
They don't really say a number, they don't put a number on it, that's the the teacher in me is, there's not really a rubric that they give us. It's just like, show us what you've done. And I think,
And the us that's evaluating is not the county
no, it's
commissioners.
at the state level.
It's, okay, that is where I was not
But the
But the
connecting the
county
dots.
has to sign off on it, so Julie will
Okay,
sign it.
thank you.
And
Okay.
essentially, like my feeling, because you brought up a good point of like how, you know, how serious of a thing is it? I feel like, and someone can strike me down for saying this if it's wrong. I feel like what would happen to a board like ours that has a good reputation is if we had just a really bad year where we just did not accomplish anything, didn't read a single thing or report reading a single thing, as the case may be for some of us, that we would get the slap on the wrist, like, usually Monroe County, you do better than this, like, we hope to see improvement by your next one, like, I can see something like that would happen if we had our worst year ever.
And what's the entity that is doing this evaluation?
DHPA, just Division of Historic Preservation and Archaeology.
Which is
Okay,
the name for the state historic preservation
yes,
office.
and in fact,
They're your
DNR.
Jeannie Reagan Dennis people.
Right.
I'm meeting, she's doing a talk for me Thursday.
Oh, very good.
So she's all in the same office
Yeah.
with Steve Kennedy. He oversees the CLGs, as well as the grants. So,
Well, they have to have a set
right,
list of things they're looking for. That has to be in their accountability.
they are under, they have to abide by what the federal government tells them to do.
Yeah.
So that's why, it's just like with the Alexander Memorial.
Okay.
We have to have our final report in by a certain date. Because DHPA staff has to do their reporting by a certain date. So if their
Okay.
local people are behind, it puts, you know.
Yeah.
Thank
And in
you
that
for
case, it's all
clarifying,
about that
because that
grant money.
really
Right.
helps.
That $60,000 grant money.
So
I
yeah,
mean, it says that we're doing what we need to be doing to
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
the quality
and
Yeah.
I would
of the
say,
decision making, and I get that. That makes a lot of sense.
one thing I would love to see more of us doing, aside from my own negligence in reporting, one thing I would love to see us do more of is things like when the Alexander Memorial is finished, to sort of have an educational presentation on what happened. Because I think the what happened presentation, like to guide us through, you know, here's how it started, here's this, here's when the cleaning went awry, because they used whatever they were not supposed to use, cleaning it that one time.
Bill
You
McDonald.
know, yeah, exactly. When go through and here's how the panels were reconstructed.
And that
and-
should be written
yeah.
up. That's something.
And I think that should be something that becomes part of our education for the next year, that we go,
Yeah.
oh, well, we all attended that lecture. We, you know, we had somebody in our group present, because we also have in-house experts, you know, right here at the table, where somebody says, here's the process, and now we know when you have limestone monuments, do not clean them with such and such, or like, you know,
Acid,
and, you know,
You
cemetery.
would have
things
thought
like that.
anybody with a brain would know that.
Well, yeah, but,
detergents.
yeah, but we're here now, we're all here now.
All you have to do is look at the definition of detergents.
Yeah.
Detergent sounds rather mild,
Yeah,
but it's not.
yeah.
And
Well,
they
thank
tried
you,
their-
thank you all.
They tried their
I've
best.
got work plan, updates, but I was also just thinking that Alexander Memorial wise, one of the reasons I was a little bit late was that I was on the phone with, Adam Lambert with, or Andrew Lambert with a marketing company here locally that the county commissioners want to hire to do a marketing campaign. I wish it had happened a little bit sooner, about the memorial, and you just gave me a really good idea. Because he said, well, we could kind of back up and do some of the backstory. And that actually might be some of the good backstory to add to it. It's not just this current project, but going back to a lot of the
The
why,
origin,
not
yeah.
just like it got damaged, but really the why. So anyway.
I mean, is that stuff written up there? Is it in minutes? Where would you compile such a?
It's probably in the committee, the Alexander Memorial Committee has the
Well,
best
yeah.
record of things right now.
I will say this, unfortunately, minutes have not been taken,
Okay.
meeting after meeting after meeting. Uh,
John Summerlin.
John
has
Summerlin
everything.
has
Yeah.
been, I would say, as well as Danielle, very, very good about putting things on Facebook sites, kind of like a continuing saga of what's going on. All of us have our I've kept all of my emails, I'm sure you have. I mean, so remember that in case ever, I mean, I've kept every email for the last, what, 2.5 years, back and forth, so it could be, chronologically, step by step.
Well, I'll just throw this out there. If you guys would give me the information, I would be happy to compile it into something that makes some sense.
Thank you. Thank you.
The latter part of the year, after July 1st.
Now, marketing wise, I'll put in my little suggestion. When they X-rayed it, I thought it'd be a very cool T-shirt to have an X-ray of the Alexander Memorial. Because it's a recognizable thing, but to see the X-ray of it.
Well, we might, the fact that minutes haven't been taken, meeting after meeting, like here, everything's been recorded. The people who have kept a running dialogue or a file or folder on their emails might really come in handy. I know you probably have.
I haven't.
I
I
have.
can't keep it all.
You may have someone who's analyst and just ask.
I purposely kept everything, so,
I have too much going on with other things.
Yeah.
It's just-
You probably have a backlog in email just not organized, yeah.
but I have kept Alexander Memorial File.
I think people would be interested in.
It's quite a story. It's been a roller coaster.
Are we just about done? Because I need
I,
to leave
well,
if
I
we're
really
not.
want to get through these updates
Okay.
that I have based on.
Do you wanna-
last
do you wanna-
month's meeting.
I'm gonna run down.
Yeah,
to that.
okay.
Yeah.
I'll take a short break. But go on without it.
Okay, well, actually, well, I guess we did minutes. Oh, I was hoping for Susan to be able to hear some of this stuff.
We can just do a stretchy break.
Do you care about that?
No, go for it. Just everybody go. Everybody needed it apparently. Don, if you need a 5-minute break, feel free to take a 5-minute bio break. And anybody else who's on the Zoom. And then
Are there
we'll-
other people on Zoom? I can't tell. I can't
We
read
have
that.
county people, who I think are our tech team.
Whoever PL counter is.
Yeah.
I see. If I have my computer in front of me, I can see, but that far I couldn't tell it.
No, it's just Dawn. by
Tarzan
herself.
and Jane were watching.
So, I was just in Greece. That's
Yes.
not a normal thing to say, but I was just in Greece, and it was very interesting at the Parthenon,
Yes.
where when they were first doing restoration, they put in concrete. In
That
some of the
says a
gaps,
lot. That's
yeah,
exciting. Yeah.
they have since removed it to put in marble from the sand quarry.
I was asking.
So then you have the big contrast difference between the old and the new, but now it's not going to eat away at the marble that's there.
Mhm.
Because they were having issues with it eating away the marble and then also the rust.
Was that the pollution that was eating it?
I think so, and then it's really interesting because the way they designed it, the columns go inward.
Yeah, it's
It's like an optical
an
illusion to
optical
make it
illusion
look
to make
straight.
it look perfect,
Yeah, exactly.
but it's
Like it
so
does a weird thing to
imperfect.
your
That's funny.
eye by going inward, and with the scaffolding up, you can tell that all the columns tilt in towards the middle. But then but yeah, it's just very interesting, and I got a lot of pictures of just all the stone pieces, numbered, just kind of out and around it and stuff, and it's like, feels like home.
Yeah.
Really.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
How long did you get to stay there?
I was there 10 days, I was there on a school trip, but it was good.
You know what? I'll be saying this until the day I die. This place, this 30 miles long, 2 to 10 miles wide. It is such an incredibly special
Oh, yeah.
place, this deposit. I just hope people realize, like you
Yeah.
say, you feel like you're at home. And
Yeah.
it's just anywhere you
Yeah.
go. I mean, we have sold stone Dubai, we've sold stone Germany. I mean, the fact that they will get it from little old Bedford or
Oh, yeah.
Bloomington or Owen
It won't take
County.
long to make it.
No, it's really cool.
Much better.
It's cool.
So I'm not back.
Don's not back yet, we'll give him a couple more minutes. I declared a 5-minute bio break.
But it's just so,
Yeah.
it's so special.
Well, and just
this area.
the artistry, when I drive somewhere like by Bybee. And not only do they have, you know, the columns that they carved for their entryway,
Dinner,
but then just all the limestone, it's like junk limestone. Now it's like, it shows this eye for
This is
quality,
nomad.
nope, that's not good enough, nope, that's not good enough, nope, that's
My
not good
husband's
enough.
helped,
Like,
so I think I'll
and then
stop somewhere.
At Griffey, I'm sure you see this as often as I
By
do,
the time I get
how they
home,
put the
half
pieces
an
of
hour
limestone,
drive.
and the one piece says explosives on it.
Not a lot of time.
Yeah.
You know what that's about? We have two magazines and you have blocks, 7, 6, 8, 10-ton blocks all the way around because of vandalism,
Yeah.
right? But then the ATF will make us paint
Uh-huh.
explosives. And we didn't think that they would, right there it is, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
they don't know what it means. They'll probably think that some student
Yeah,
or something
exactly.
did that. So, it's crazy.
That is like, at Fountain Square, you can see where they painted on the back of the jail parking only. On the stone, it's still visible, even though it's not the paint there, it's the, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
residual where it says jail parking only.
But
But-
no kidding, I say all of us, we're living such a special, you know, because you go all over the world.
Yeah, well, and I consider it like a face, I tell people, if there's Indiana limestone, it's like seeing a person's face that I know. So if you put me in Chicago, I go, oh, there's our limestone. Like, you know, like,
Are you
I don't know if you ever thought
I'm
about it,
interested.
if you look at concrete.
What is
like
it,
City
you work with
Hall
Joe Vance
Or some of the buildings.
at Silver Lake, if you ever, what is much access to? Do you have much access to historical records?
Just like
Yeah.
towns
or.
or.
yeah, so much more vibrant, yeah.
Because I've been working with Joe for 5 years.
Yeah, let's go ahead and
Let's
get
see how
started.
everybody back. Can we keep going?
Yes, we have.
Yeah,
everybody
let's
back.
do it.
I got here at 7:30 this
And she
morning.
received a
No,
really good
okay.
program.
Yeah, Don will be back soon, I'm sure.
Oh, wait, he's not back yet. Oh, I thought,
Well,
I magically imagined him, I think, just now.
Where they
He's back.
lived and-
Are you back?
Coming back. Yep,
There he is.
There he is.
Okay,
Okay.
so
I'll
Danielle,
try to be quick.
And
but
I always
obviously
wondered what the trustee's office
Yep.
might have.
Danielle is gonna lead us in
We've got a
the
lot of great
work plan discussion as far as what.
Do you? What is
Are we just gonna go down the road here?
I
Down
figured
the
we,
road, because I've got something in several.
I figured we'd save time and just have the updates, so you just want to all of it, yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe look at building some volunteers to get that.
So,
that we can share it.
actually, the first update is under the Drystown walls. And I know I'm not technically part of the committee, but I've kind of become part of the committee because I've been working with this conservancy. I don't have to name them, but in any case, I just wanted to give this update based on what I observed the discussion was at the last meeting that I had to miss. So just for, especially also to update Susan, so the board has discussed seeking funding to hire Drystown Conservancy to complete a comprehensive survey of the walls of the county.
Yeah.
I mean, this board has been talking about that for a while, as opposed to the volunteer concept. And that way, the data can be formally added to the mapping for demolition delay, because we have this comprehensive survey done. So that's one area. Funding is an issue. It is something that we would have to, we were talking about this earlier, be going to the commissioners and saying, you know, this is what it's gonna cost, can you help fund this? We don't know yet what that cost will be. I'm waiting to hear from Jane and Russell to come back from the Drystown Conservancy. When they come into town to work on documenting the wall that is on the Rumpke property, they are supposed to get with us to talk about the survey and what it would take. But having them do this work, it eliminates the need to train and manage volunteers, to manage the oversight of the finished product, to determine how that information is going to be compiled and put into a document. Just all of that, they would take care of. And so, again, it's not a done deal. We're waiting for that process or that ability to talk with them to see what it will take.
And that's something they do
Yes,
in other places. and have-
Right.
Yeah,
yeah.
And are they based in Kentucky?
They're in Lexington, yeah.
Okay.
which would be a great place to be.
Yeah. But they travel all over. I mean, they travel up New York State, there's walls, so. And this is the nonprofit that did the wall workshop. The last time we went, when they came and they were on the raised property. So anyway, so that's an update there. We were talking about the dry stone walls at the last meeting, as far as surveying and all of that. Community signage. The question is, will the committee for community signage consider taking on the project of helping develop permanent interpretive signage for the Alexander Memorial? Because that is part of the process right now that the committee's talking about. As part of this, as we finalize the monument work, John has had in mind all along, and there's been some minor discussion about putting interpretive signage on the courthouse lawn. So obviously it has to be developed, has to go through approvals, all of
Right.
that. But that's a question that I just have, is whether or not it could become, again, something that this board kind of heads up doing, and you don't necessarily have to answer that question. But because the other part of that is that I would suggest that we make the Alexander Memorial project
A
and
priority.
its restoration a feature for this board
Mhm.
of the Limestone Festival for this
Okay.
year. I mean, we can talk about the dry stone walls, but the monument has been
Yeah,
kind of
it's a
what we've been
central thing.
focusing on, and
Um,
we finished. And then we have the dedication, hopefully a month after the festival, so.
I'd say that sounds great to me. Don and Dawn, who are also on the committee. Any thoughts to the contrary?
No, I agree, we should do that. So,
Don's looking for his unmute.
Debbie's got a question.
Yeah.
Oh, Don,
I would agree it's a good project. I would agree it's a good project for us to pursue.
So I'd say probably whatever written information and pictures, so we can move forward on figuring out what sorts of interpretive signage. and get something
you
to
were
say.
part of that committee meeting I had to miss.
Respectfully, there's some strong personalities on the Alexander Memorial Committee. Do you think that they will be comfortable with what's being proposed?
Are we
Because
horning in?
I think these are good ideas, but just, you've been on that committee same as I have. I mean, what's your gut feeling?
I don't think John Summerlot would have an issue with it.
Well, I
He's
wasn't even-
former co-chair.
Yeah, I wasn't even,
I don't think Todd would have an issue with it.
yeah, I wasn't even entertaining names, but just if you thought that some of the stronger personalities would relinquish the,
I think that the county commissioners, have kind of asked for our input.
okay, you know where I'm going.
Is this
I know where you're
something that
going.
can be presented as, we want to do this?
It was a question for me for this board that I can then take back to the committee.
Okay.
and
Okay,
say,
and you know how to navigate there.
Well, and
So-
here's, it's a little bit of the background is that we have discussion going with the History Center to help put together a temporary exhibit.
Okay,
That would be at the courthouse during the dedication and rededication, all that. And then probably, given my conversation with Randy Cassidy, then maybe at some point move to where the original panels are on display. Like once permanent signage can be erected. So it's kind of taking whatever that
So,
exhibit
yeah.
is.
and then turning it
and then
into a
trying to
sign
put
that's
it
there all
into
the time.
signage.
Okay, yeah.
So it's working with the History
Yeah,
Center
and
folks.
I would say, from our perspective, yeah, anything that's us being helpful in honoring their work in whatever way you need to navigate.
And it's kind of, oversight.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of what the board's doing at this program and, yeah, so. So that was
Yeah.
just, that was just.
Navigation is the key.
Well, yeah, and I think it's basically too, because I feel like, otherwise everything falls back on John Summerlot, potentially as chair to head this up and,
And he's busy in a lot of different.
Right.
Yeah.
He's a little.
and it's kind of taking it off of him, maybe thinking, well, maybe I'll ask the history center staff to help.
Yeah.
Well, maybe our board can help, you know,
Good
so
point.
Okay.
Good
that's
point.
just my thought,
Yeah,
basically.
That sounds
Good
great.
point.
So, so that's my thing with community signage. The education committee part, public education. The other thing that I was gonna throw out, I know Susan, you brought up this at the last meeting, so again, the Monroe County History Club talk you were mentioning.
For May, we're on board.
For May 2023, right?
The Dry Stone Conservancy could potentially help with that.
That's what I was thinking.
Like, they could be part of it.
Yeah.
And I would all, pre-pandemic, again, this is, kind of updating. Pre-pandemic, we had planned for them to come and do another workshop, wall workshop at the Stipender Farm, and to be part of a public lecture for either Preservation Month or Limestone Month. And so, again, kind of reconsidering those plans for next year, that could all start to become part of our radar, that they could potentially even, I know the History Club meets on one night, or one day of the week.
Yeah, that's
But,
not
it might,
negotiable.
may or may not work time-wise, but anyway, it's something that.
But they could certainly work with us to put
Right,
the pieces
right.
together. And on that, if I could interject on that same vein, I tried to reach Polly about, we had talked about the June 4th event at the Geology Building, putting something together. I wasn't able to connect with her. So hopefully I can soon, because I know I want to get that to you to look at so that we have whatever it is we're going to do before the next meeting, because that event's June 4th.
Right, there's not a lot of time.
Only
Yeah.
one
So
more meeting and
I'll try to reach out to her again.
So the last thing I had was, the demolition delay committee, like a whole month's gone by since this last meeting. It's like, really, what?
So you watched it all
So-
today.
Well, it was
Yeah.
like day before yesterday. I think it was,
Two
but-
times the speed?
Hmm?
Did you do it 2 times the speed?
No, I didn't. No, I listened to everything because I really wanted to hear what was said, but, so here's the other update. Because I told Dawn and Duncan this when we had committee meeting. So there's still a lot of discussion, and I know with Dave and everything about this map and all this stuff. So I had a conversation with Paul Diebold at DHPA about this some time ago. The Shard survey data can be provided to the county as an Excel document. So, so then we can then add or delete to that information as desired, such as adding a formally completed survey of the walls or barns, or even if we found more money and hired somebody to resurvey the whole county for us, put it all together. But basically, and we can say that we have taken this information from this database, but DHPA really prefers that we're not adopting, and we're not publicly saying that we're adopting the Shard survey, because their experience has been that they then get all the irate calls from property owners saying, will you take my property off this list? Will you take my property off? And they can't do that. And it's not their business to even get those calls. But if we receive the document, the information, and put it into our own county document.
So we essentially
We
have
get
the
the
survey, we're the owners of the survey. that-
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we can, like I said, we can delete from it if we, Duncan and I kind of had this argument, like, if this board, even though he said, you're historic, if this board said, we don't really want to keep those old mobile homes on that survey.
Yeah, we had
or-
one in my neighborhood.
Right, this
Anyway.
board could discuss it and elect to
Delete or add.
Take it out.
Right,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I know Duncan, if he was here, he would argue about it and say, you know, this stuff, you don't wanna do that. But I'm just saying that it gives this board that flexibility to add or delete to this document an additional information that is not, the walls are not in the Chardonnay.
There's so much
bars
that's
are not
not
charged.
there,
Right, exactly.
and it's a very inadequate
Right.
list.
So like they were included in the 1989 survey, not all of them obviously, but they're not in the current one. So
Did
that-
we,
so
did
that is what,
we, did
that's
we get
how
the
we would.
Excel of both 89 and the more recent one? Or the 89, we just have to hand?
Yeah, I mean, and there again, you know, we can, that would be part of what I would say is potentially looking at the 89 survey and, you know, what is missing, you know, that might take, you know, adding to it in certain ways. They still have the information somewhere, but I think it's all paper files.
I'm going to tell you,
Because that's the thing.
everyone should have known I would be on this board when that 89 survey came out. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That I was obsessed with that. Like, it was like, here's my babysitter's house and here's the such and such. Yeah.
Aw, Danielle, if I may, the litany that you just went through, that's your report.
Well,
Yeah, I know, but we
sort of.
hadn't been doing that because when I had left, things were stagnant.
right,
That's for the report.
Well,
This is
exactly.
what we've accomplished.
right. And that's, you know, all these committees and stuff like
Yes.
that, you know, so yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of, that's why I said I have to sit back and look at it. But so that's the whole thing, though, when we were talking about this, adopting a map and how do we do this? We have we would be given the information, and then I know in that last meeting, Tammy talked about how the county has these, you know, systems. So, I mean, it might take some work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
heard
obviously-
Excel document and I was like, was that connected to the parcel land? I need a parcel number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just
But,
looking
you
at
know,
GIS
parcel
records.
numbers.
It allows you to
Highlight
create
and
those little
geographic.
flags on things.
Yeah.
and,
Georeference
you know,
stuff.
Do you ever
So.
think you're going mad?
Probably today, many
But what
times,
it,
yeah.
what it does is it eliminates that, you know, then you're not like, well, I have to go into some database on some other system, like the state system, and go look at this, like you do now. You know, like, oh, is this on the Chardonnay?
Could have our own Monroe
It's
County.
an afterthought. It's a pain. Yeah, and it's hard because it doesn't match up perfectly either.
Mhm,
It's sometimes like, there's the dot I'm looking for, but I know it's supposed to be here.
right,
Yeah.
or you can't type in an address and find it, there's,
Well,
it just doesn't
yeah,
work.
occasionally.
So, anyway, so that is, to me, was one of the major
That's a
updates that
big
I had
step,
from the
yeah.
committee a while back, was that, you know, that whole thing is kind of like a moot point in terms of, I'm not saying it's not
Chart
gonna
as
take,
the
right,
end all
it's
be
not
all,
gonna take
yeah.
some work to get it into a usable system, but it's easy to get that information, and like I said, and then just add to it as we need to. So, you know, I mean, if, I like the fact that there are some properties missing that are in the 89 survey, that are not in the current one, that are still existing,
An
and I
address
told
has
them,
changed.
please
Mhm.
add these, and it doesn't, you know,
Yeah.
so, anyway, so that's my updates.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very, very much.
Complicated, but
Okay, so I know in the interest of time, we're all ready
Yes,
to
please.
move on, yep. So, thank you for everybody's work tonight. I know we've been through a lot of discussion of a lot of very important things. So, any final last minute urgent thing that needs to be said before we adjourn?
I have these posters
oh, they
and I
sent
was,
those already.
I was wondering if maybe Susan might want to have these. I mean, obviously I think the board
Oh, those are
members should have
cashiers.
first dibs, but if you wanted to put them on the table
Yeah.
and distribute them, these are 3 years worth that just accumulated because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I have a couple stuff.
We could have them.
I might have
dry
taken
out.
a Coca-Cola one because of my mom.
I mean, whatever we have, we'll have, so,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Can I- can I
Unless
take
there's-
these?
Yeah, go for it. More in there, yeah. Uh-huh.
I think we.
Yes, let's
And,
adjourn.
Auction to the rescue, if anyone wants to, like, you need an auction or whatever.
Okay, thank you very
Yeah.
much. And I know that we're still gonna see you next month, but thank you for all of your time with us and as you transition. and we bring on a new person
I
to,
feel like I was just getting the hang of it. and I was
that's
just
usually
like,
how it goes.
By identifying the schools.
Yeah.
That was years of property that my grandfather.
So yes, I was 7 when we.
A little bit to down for
And
science.
we have to verify.
And do you know,
There you go.
I don't know, wait, I just wait, but I don't know.
So,
Got a ton of-
it'll fit right in with the.
And her daughter was a babysitter, and